Sup folks, time for the part 21, of What If Deku Run an Orphanage, Chapter 131 Startup, Author's Notes. So hey, just a heads up, we're not going to spend much time with the kids at camp. Really, I only plan to do one chapter with them at camp, and Yami with them AI. Because Izuku is going to be very busy, and we'll mostly be following him. Anyway, on to the story. Seeing as Izuku's office was out of commission, Izuku now had to hold his meetings at a desc building. Izuku sat in one of their offices. It was rather basic, nothing more than a bland beige room, with a table and two chairs. The door to the room opened, and Nemi came in, wearing her elementary schooler's backpack, and carrying a glass jar, with 3 crystals inside. These crystals were about the length of someone's hand, and half as wide. And they were all glowing with this rainbow-colored energy. "Yo! What up?" Nami greeted, quickly taking a seat and placing her backpack on the floor, and placing the jar on the table. "How's camp life been treating you?" "Well, things have been going well so far." Izuku sighed. "Although with how busy I've been, I've barely set foot on the campsite." "Yeah, whenever something big happens, a bunch of works follows." Nami groaned, leaning back in her chair. "Speaking of work, let's just get this over with. Here's the papers on your new bundle of joy." Nami pulled out a bunch of papers and handed them to Izuku, who immediately started reading them. They also came with a picture of this child. Jin was his name, and he had a peculiar appearance. That being, he looked like a child mannequin that was covered in silver chrome. They had no notable features, nor hair, even their eyes were just blank silver. Basically, this kid's quirk allows him to shoot off some kind of energy beams from their body, Nami explained lazily. The beams are made of some sort of radiation, but normally given that it's under his control, they wouldn't be listed as an OPC, but a birth defect they have means that they constantly leak this radiation out. I thought quirks involving leaking radiation were all labeled as level 2 OPCs? Izuku asked, still looking through the papers. "Yeah, but this radiation is not your typical kind of radiation. In fact, it's not like any radiation we've seen before," Nami said. "We're not 100% sure what it is, and we don't really care all too much. One of our interns apparently got super interested and wrote some papers on it, but no one really cares. You can read her notes if you want. They're the last paper." Izuku took note, and separated the last paper from the rest of them, wanting to give that one more attention later. "But, like I said, they constantly leak out some radiation. Fortunately, this radiation isn't as deadly as most other kinds. For one, you have to be around him for a while for it to start showing effects, and when it does show effects, well, they can be pretty weird. It seems to do random things to people. Sometimes they can be good things, sometimes not so much," Nami explained. "But, thankfully, we've developed these." Nami tapped the jar holding the crystals. "These babies are called fractals. They store up this radiation, I think it's called chaos energy or something, attracting it like a magnet, keeping it from affecting other people. Well, so long as the crystal isn't full. All of these are full crystals. Empty crystals look like this, but not rainbowy. This makes him pretty much harmless to be around. However, these fractals are full of energy, and they can do some interesting things." She then opened the jar. "Come on, touch one." Izuku set down the papers and looked at the jar cautiously. "What does it do?" "Well, telling you wouldn't be any fun now, would it?" Nami asked rhetorically. "Come on, you can trust me. If anything bad happened to you, I'd be utterly forked. Just touch one." Izuku was hesitant, but also curious. So he reached into the jar and grabbed one of the crystals. Instantly, 2 things happened. First, Izuku felt a flow of energy fill his body, like coffee times 50. And then lasers blasted out of his eyes. Pew! Whoa! Izuku instantly dropped the fractal, causing the flow of energy to stop. The laser had burned through the wall and burned the wall after it. "See, pretty neat, huh?" Nami said with a smirk. Did that just give me a quirk? Izuku asked, freaking out just a little bit. In a sense. I told you these fractals do all sorts of weird things when a person comes into contact with them. Some of which can be pretty useful if you're being attacked. Nami told him. But be careful if you're gonna use them. Something about putting them in these crystals makes the energy a bit unstable. So having it constantly flowing through your body can put a lot of strain on it. I'd say the safe amount of time to use one is 10 minutes. Interesting. I wonder what reaction these would have to the Grim. Izuku thought, before looking down at the last page. Maybe this will tell me more. As Izuku quickly started reading over the page, Nami got up and started getting ready to leave. Welp, that should be all. Anyway, ma head out. See ya. Hold on a minute, Izuku called out. Nami groaned and sat back down. What? Izuku continued to read through the paper for a minute, before responding. You said that an intern wrote this? One who had an interest in the energy? Yeah, apparently she kept causing a big ruckus. She kept trying to get people to research this a bit more, but everyone just kept telling her to stick to her job. Nami shrugged. Izuku shook his head. Of course, they would. Although, I have to say I'm glad. I would like to speak to this intern as quickly as possible. Maruja-kun was very nervous as she approached the DOC office building, with two men in suits on both sides of her. She was a short girl, despite being 17 years old, one could mistake her for a middle school student. Her most notable features, being of course her orange hair, fox ears, and two tails. And seeing as she was pretty much dragged here from her house after a long all-nighter, she was still wearing her lab coat and some orange pajamas, which was very, very humiliating. What do they want? Did I overstep too much back at the lab? Did they find out about the fractals I stole? Maru thought nervously, as she entered the building, sweating heavily all the while. She was guided through the plain and rather desolate building, down a few halls, and up to one of the doors. So I just go inside here? Maru asked one of the suited men, who nodded in response. Oh okay. Hesitantly, she turned the doorknob and opened it up. And was shocked to see Izuku Midoriya, sitting at a desk waiting for her. Hello. Izuku greeted her with a smile. Please, you're right? Yes. Maru nodded, a bit confused and a little less scared. She entered the room and closed the door behind her. Then please come in, sit down, Izuku instructed her politely. And don't worry, you're not here for anything bad. I assure you. Oh. Okay. Maru walked up to the desk, and sat down, getting a bit less nervous. You're Izuku Midoriya, right? That's right, Izuku confirmed. It's still weird to have people recognize me. Well, I'm a big fan of your work. Really taking on that big of a responsibility, and you're even younger than me. Maru said with a bright smile on her face, before frowning again. Oh, and I'm so sorry about what happened to you with that whole villain attack thing. I'd like to say that I can't believe people would do that just because you're quirkless, but... Maru looked back at her tails. I really can. Izuku frowned. You've been discriminated against because of your quirk? Not because of my quirk, it's because I have a birth defect, Maru admitted with a sigh, bringing her tails up to her legs and petting them. It's really not a big deal. I was supposed to be born with one tail, but I got two instead. If I was supposed to have two tails, no one would have batted an eye, but once people found out it was a birth defect, suddenly it's important. I don't get people sometimes. Neither do I. Izuku agreed. But now let's move on to why I asked to see you. As you know, I take in OPCs from DOC, and Jin is slated to be the newest child to be put under my care. Oh. Immediately Maru's mood dipped, although she tried not to show it with a fake smile, but given that her ears drooped. I see. I understand it, that you were quite interested in the energy his quirk gives off, Izuku said, pulling out the paper he read earlier. It says here that you believe this energy Chaos energy, I believe you called it, could lead to a better understanding of quirks, and even where they came from. And also that it could bring us into a new age of technology. Now those are some pretty heavy statements. But it's true, Maru quickly defended her claim, rocketing forward and getting a bit closer to Izuku than he'd like. Think about it. You've seen those fractals, right? Energy that assigns and random effects to a person of crystal. Those crystals give effects that are just like quirks. And I can prove it. I've done studies on my own body, and even my girlfriend, and I found an energy signature, similar to chaos energy and my quirk. It's not the exact same, but I theorize that's because the energy the child puts out is pure. If I just had the resources and time, I could search deeper. Maybe I could even figure out where quirks came from. That would be amazing, Izuku admitted, nodding along with what she was saying. But, what about that, bringing us into a new age of technology? Well, think about it. Look at All Might. He has the power to punch and produce enough energy to destroy a mountain. Maru continued enthusiastically. And where exactly does he get that energy? He eats and drinks as much as anyone else. It's all coming from his quirks. And it lasts his entire life. Safe, self-sustaining energy, with that much power output. Imagine what we could do with that. Oh, I've thought about it quite a lot, Izuku assured her, which is why you're here. If you can prove your claims about energy and its uses, then I can give you an opportunity to study and experiment with this energy. Maru's eyes widened with excitement. Seriously? Thank you. Thank you so much. I knew that someone had to see the potential here. Oh, I can't wait to hold on a minute, Izuku said, stopping her before she could get too carried away. You still have to prove that this energy is useful as you say it is. Oh well. You see, I may have already done some experiments on it. At home. Maru looked away, blushing with shame, and twiddling her thumbs nervously. With some crystals I borrowed. You stole some crystals from work, and used them to try and prove how useful they could be after no one listened to you. Izuku summarized. You pretty much hit the nail on the head. Maru laughed nervously. But it worked. I did find a way to power something with chaos energy. I made a power source that seemingly never runs out. And is completely safe to use without any negative repercussions on the environment or people. I can show you. Just please give me a chance. And forgive me for the whole stealing from work thing. I promise that was just a one-time thing. I would never normally consider it. But this just had so much potential, and no one was listening to me, so it's fine. Izuku cut her off. While DOC might have some issues with this, I personally don't care. As long as you can show me your results, my offer stands. Well, it's back at my house, Maru explained. We can go there right now if you want. Unless you're busy or something. No, I made plenty of time in my schedule for this, Izuku explained. Let's go. After a short drive in the limousine, they arrived at Maru's house. It was a modern, two-story house that had a rather fancy look to it. It also had a garage and parking lot, but rather than a car being parked, there was a jet. That's interesting, Izuku noted as he got out of the car. You like it? It's called the Tornado. Maru explained as she stepped out of the limo as well. I built it myself. Interesting, Izuku said, noting that for later. The two walked away from the car, Izuku following Maru as the two made their way towards the garage. Hey, isn't this the house of Blue Blur? Izuku asked, recognizing the house from his hero-obsessed days. Oh, you recognized it? Maru said, slightly surprised. Yeah, it's my big bro's house. He adopted me when I was little. He may not be number one in the rankings, but he's my personal top hero. I see. Izuku smiled. Sounds like a good guy. I'm glad that even a hero could find the time to save someone like this. They swiftly reached the garage, and after Maru pulled out a key and pressed a button, the door opened up. and inside a room, covered in blueprints, notes, and strange machines. On the floor walls, Izuku even spotted some on the ceiling. The only things in here besides those were 3 tanks containing fractals, one containing a strange emerald about the size of someone's fist, and a rose on a windowsill. Sorry about the mess. The whole chaos energy thing got me really excited, so yeah. Maru laughed nervously while blushing, from embarrassment. Izuku meanwhile, was immediately drawn towards the emerald. He walked towards the desk it was placed on, and took a closer look at it. I recognized the fractals, but what is this? That. Oh, that is actually very important, Maru said, closing the door behind her, and running over to Izuku. This is a Chaos Emerald. It's basically the prototype of the fractals. It can store much more chaos energy, and you can use it as much as you want, unlike the fractals. It's way more useful and far more powerful. But it was far more expensive to make too. And it required very rare materials. So the guys in charge demanded that we make a cheaper version. These fractals can only hold a fraction of their power, hence the name. Okay, how much power can this hold exactly? Izuku asked. Yeah, it's hard to calculate, but roughly it could destroy around 2 cities. Maru said casually. Excuse me. Izuku gasped, almost falling over from shock. Oh, but don't worry, it's not actually gonna explode, Maru reassured. At least so long as you don't use it to power a bomb. But, perhaps you'd like to see its capabilities. I mean, that is what you came here for. Yes, please, let's see it. Izuku agreed. After a short amount of preparations, Maru seemed to be ready. They were in her driveway, and Izuku was currently standing by the garage door, while Maru was standing further down, with the Chaos Emerald in her hand, and a device by her feet. The device looked like some kind of blue sci-fi laser cannon, with a slot open at the base, seemingly for the emerald to be slotted in. Maru was currently looking at a tablet. Okay, I was just checking to make sure we don't hit any planes with this. Are you sure this is legal? Izuku asked her. Oh yeah, we were given permission to use the skies around here as much as was please, so long as we don't interfere with flight paths, Maru explained, as she kneeled down, and opened the Chaos Emerald container. Now, this should shoot out a beam of plasma into the sky. As Maru took out the emerald and placed it into the cannon, before closing the hatch. Okay. Maru took a step back. Now I just need to press this button and shoom. Suddenly the cannon exploded, shooting an absolutely massive beam of light the width of a car into the sky, piercing the clouds with its power. The beam continued to pierce the sky until Maru freaked out and pressed the off button on her tablet. The cannon quickly ceased fire, and powered down, smoke pouring from it. Once the cannon stopped, there was a long stretch of silence, as the two of them stared at the cannon with wide eyes. Eventually, Maru broke the silence with a bit of nervous laughter. Well, it looks like the emerald's power exceeded my expectations. But it worked. And you're saying it can do that forever? Izuku asked, taken aback by the showing. Well, the cannon itself would likely give out, but the emerald could produce that amount of energy for a period of time, long past a normal human lifespan, Maru explained. I don't know if it's forever, but it could be. I see. In that case, I think that'll work. Izuku smiled, as he started to think of more possibilities. Wait, does that mean you'll allow me to do more research on chaos energy? Maru gasped, looking at Izuku hopefully. Yes, Izuku confirmed. However, it'll come with some stipulations. You see, I have a plan for all this. I plan to make a new branch of the Midoriya Foundation, one that's had a very different focus from the main branch. This branch will be focused on researching things in relation to the children's quirks, such as the chaos energy coming from Jin, Yami's grim goop, and other such things, as well as building defenses for the complex, and other things as well. I intend to make you the head of that branch. Maru's eyes widened. Really? You'd be free to research the chaos energy as you please, so long as you use it to help secure the complex, and fulfill some request I may have, for you. Izuku continued. Of course, you'll be very well paid, you'll have the freedom to run your department as you see fit, under my supervision, and you'll be provided with funds for your research, development, and experiments. That's more than I could have ever hoped for. Maru shouted, almost crying from joy, as she quickly started bowing to Izuku. Thank you, sir. I'll definitely make sure to produce results. You won't regret this. I'm sure I won't, Izuku said before he started walking up to the limo. I'll send you the contract. If you have any issues with it, please call me. I'll be seeing you soon. Izuku stepped into the back of the car, as Maru kept spitting out thanks. Head to the campsite, I want to see how everyone's doing before I go to the new station. Yes sir, said the DOC driver, as he started up the car. Izuku sighed, as he took this time to close his eyes for a while. While the attack had ended, the hardships had only just started. Izuku would never get the sigh of his injured children lined up on the floor. Of Miu's hand nearly being burned off, of Ken's burned face and bloodied mouth, of Nara having a hole punched through her chest. If it wasn't for Riri, things would have been so much worse. He needed to step it up. No more hesitation, no more considering if something was overkill. If the Meta Liberation Army wanted to declare war on him, he needed to make sure he was ready. He needed more money, more power, more everything. And this was just the first step. Izuku wasn't happy about the path he'd have to walk, but if the end result of this path was his children being safe, then he had no choice but to walk it. Author's note: okay, so two big references here. First, yes, the fractals are a reference to the Superhero Squad show. Because why not? Don't worry, they're not just here to give Izuku a power-up. I still don't intend for Izuku to really fight all that much. He will if he has to, but both his methods of being able to fight back have time limits. Meaning at most, Izuku can fight for about 19 minutes. And second, yes, have Sonic references. As Maru is pretty much just Tails. And of course the Chaos Emerald. We'll see more about this, as well as finally meet Gen when the house is restored. For now, we're still dealing with the aftermath of the attack. Oh, and as for Nise and our American friends, they'll come after the house is rebuilt. Just got to wait a bit longer. Chapter 132 Update: I am sorry to hear that, and I hope you will be getting better soon, dear author Kyodan. If you are curious to why I said that, I recommend that you go read the chapter yourself. Chapter 133, Checking In, words from the author. So hey everyone, thank you for all the well wishes. Thankfully, this chapter was mostly done before I went to the psych ward, so I just had to finish it up. And don't worry about me forcing myself to write. I'm not really. I like this fic, I like writing it and coming up with ideas, and I like reading your reviews. So don't worry about me too much. Anyway, here we go. The camp was not as active as one might think, considering it was a camp of barely supervised children. No one was allowed outside the campsite, and Sori was to use her keen senses and the seers to make sure no one did. This was for two reasons. First was for security reasons. Sori was the only one supervising them, and she couldn't be everywhere at once, so it was better to keep them where she was. The second reason was because there was a ton construction happening all over the property. Not just on the main facility, but also all over the forest. Izuku contracted a bunch of construction companies to work on new projects. And he didn't want the kids interfering with their work. As such, no sparring matches were allowed, nor any use of quirk that jeopardized the safety of others or the camp itself. So pretty much everyone was stuck in their tents. Thankfully they set up a router, so they did have access to the internet. Which meant Kiba was back to her regular routine. "Hello, all my loyal subjects," Kiba said to the camera. "Your queen is alive and well. Lady Kiba, you're alright. I knew no villains could harm her. What the hell happened? Low-life quirkist, scum dared lay their hands on our queen. Fear not, I am completely unharmed. Those villains could not lay even a single hand on me. Kiba lied, with a smile. As if I would ever let such low-life quirkist harm my beautiful skin. However, I lament that this stream will be short. Due to the damage done to my property, I can't truly provide much in the ways interesting content for the month and will be taking this opportunity to relax as a queen should. I simply wished to inform all my subjects that their queen is safe, and why I will not be making any more entertainment for a short while. All you. Understandable, given the situation. Make sure to rest up, Lady K. Your servants will patiently await your return. We love you, Lady Kiba. With that said, thank you all for checking in, and farewell for now, Kiba said, before ending the stream. As Kiba was shutting down her equipment, Fu watched from behind. You're not going to tell them about your new form? Fu asked her. Immediately all traces of joy drained from Kiba's face, as her expression morphed into a scowl. Why would I ever tell them about that? That grotesque form. Especially when I have no intention of ever turning into it, again. Fu about expected that reaction. While Kiba remembered nothing about her time while she was transformed, and no one was going to tell her the full story, they had shown Kiba an image taken by the cameras of her transformed state and told her what she was like in that form. And to say she was not a fan would be an understatement. You know, you may not have a choice, Fu argued. This seems like a transformation that's triggered, rather than activated. I don't care. Kiba hissed, turning her head and glaring at him. I'm not turning into that monster again. End of story. Fu sighed. Fine, but you may want to sort yourself out before Yonda decides to do that for you. Speaking of which, she's called for a group meeting outside, something about helping out Izuku. This got Kiba's attention and caused her expression to soften. Well, if it's about helping out caretaker, then I suppose we must attend. Come, and speak no more of that wicked form. With that, Kiba got up and exited the tent, leaving Fu behind. Fu sighed. Kiba. Always so lively. Always so worrying. Yonda looked over the crowd of kids in front of her. All of them standing outside in the middle of the camp. All right. Looks like everyone except Mu is here. And I'm just going to assume he's here, but we can't see him. With that in mind, I'll get right to the point. Right now, Father is working hard to earn us more money. Money? What do we need that for? Ken asked curiously. I thought we had plenty of that? Yonda shook her head. Normally, yes. We would have plenty of money to keep things running as they were before the attack. However, Father has big plans. As you are all aware, the Meta Liberation Army has declared war on us, of the Midoriya Foundation. And to fight a war, you need lots of things. Weapons, soldiers, and much more. All of which Father is working to procure, and all of which are very expensive. There was a general sense of unease after the comment, as many of the children were off-put and slightly scared by Yonda's phrasing. While others, those creeps, if they come here again, I'll smash them myself. Ken vowed. As if I still to repay them for the hole in my chest. Nara growled. While Kiba was the one to actually punch through her chest, it was the MLA's fault that Kiba was in that state, to begin with. I'll burn em up. Netsu shouted, his flames increasing in intensity. Don't over-exaggerate the things, Yonda. Fu rolled his eyes. We're not at war. A powerful villain group has targeted us, yes. But we're not at war, there is a difference. We're not going to attack them, anything. We just need to defend ourselves from their attacks, until the heroes can eliminate them. That's all. I simply wanted to stress the urgency and importance of the situation. That's all. Yonda huffed. But you're not wrong. That being said, Father is still gathering up resources to build a better defense for us. And that needs money. Which means we need to start making some. Yonda pointed at Kiba. Kiba, I'm going to discuss producing merchandise for you to sell via your channel, with father. Plushies, shirts, outfits, and much more. So get ready to advertise. Kiba nodded. If it will assist caretaker, then I'll do it. Truku, we need you to produce more outfits for Kiba to wear, this way we can sell more Kiba cosplay. Yonda told her. Game dev team, once we return, I expect you all to work feverishly. And Ken, you especially should broaden your horizons. What does that mean? Ken asked. Yonda shook her head. You can produce beautiful animations with best graphics, technology available. You can do so much with that in terms of money making. You could make a whole shonen battle anime, that would look absolutely stunning. Huh. Yeah, no, I guess I could do that. Ken pondered. I mean, I'd need someone to write it still, and Fuku's already overworked. Fuku opened her mouth, but Fu shot her a look, and she immediately shut it. I can make the story, said Miu's voice, coming from seemingly nowhere. It'll be simple. An easy-to-understand plot, with likable characters, and lots of fight scenes, that's all that's needed, right? That's pretty much shonen battle anime in a nutshell, Fu said. Might need to oversee that as well. As for the rest of you, looks for opportunities to use your talents to earn money, in whatever ways you can. Yonda told them. Or assist others, in their efforts. Either way is fine. Please remember, we're all in this together. If father struggles, we all do. That's all. With that, Yonda left and made her way toward her tent. Everyone immediately started talking among themselves, all except for Fu, who went to follow Yonda towards her tent. Fu entered the tent after her, and Yonda turned to answer him. Fu, what can I do for you? Yonda asked. Why are you so attached to Izuku? Fu asked outright. I understand the whole, him giving us a house and food, and all that, but your attachment seems to be greater. Especially considering the kind of person you are. Well, if you're getting right to the point, then so will I. You see, Fu, in general, I despise the human race. Yonda explained simply. Ever since I got this curse of a quirk, most of what I've heard is hatred, complaints, and schemes on how to hurt other people. So much negativity, it's maddening. Do you have any idea how depressing it is to be me? I can guess. Fu nodded. I can also guess how much of a breath of fresh air Izuku's thoughts are. Exactly, not once does he complain about other people, or think selfishly about how to get ahead. Almost all his thoughts are dedicated to others. Yonda smiled fondly. Sure, he has his own negative thoughts, mostly self-depreciation, which can be frustrating, but he's about as perfect as one can expect a human to be. And you all aren't so bad either. Almost everyone here is about as good as a human can get in my eyes. And I live far, far away from the mess of thoughts that is the city. This place is as perfect as it can get for me. And I have father to thank for that. That is the reason for my devotion. I see. So if you hate your quirk so much, why haven't you asked Izuku to get rid of it? Fu asked. I could ask the same of you. Yonda responded. Because I'm dead. Fu answered. My quirk is the only thing keeping me alive. Get rid of that, and I just drop dead. I see. How unfortunate. Yonda shook her head. Well, then I guess it's my turn to answer your question. You see, the reason I don't ask my father to get rid of my quirk, is because I've already tried living without it. Fu raised an eyebrow. How? Yonda gestured to her ears. Did you know that these things aren't actually ears? At least they don't function the same way most ears do. Although they look the same as normal ears, they have two unique differences. One is that they let me hear the thoughts of others, and two, they grow back if you cut them off. It didn't take Fu very long to put together what Yonda was implying. Ah. I see. Once you can hear the thoughts of others, and how distrustful and hateful they are, you can't go back. Yonda sighed. Without my quirk, quite frankly, I'd become an insane paranoid mess. Well, and even more, insane paranoid mess, does Izuku know that you did that? Fu asked. Yonda rolled her eyes. Of course, he does, it's on my file. DOC's lazy, but even they wouldn't just not record something like this. I guess so. Still, don't do anything like that again. Fu told her firmly. I don't think Izuku could handle much more stress. I know. Yonda nodded. Have a nice day, Fu, and tell Kiba she doesn't have to worry about me. I'll let the therapist deal with her. Unless of course, the situation is dire. Yeah, I trust that alright. Fu said sarcastically. Meanwhile, just after Yonda's meeting, Ken and Nara went over to Kiba. Hey, are okay, Kiba? Nara asked the vampiric girl. I feel completely fine, why? Kiba asked in return. We just wanted to make sure you were okay after the whole transformation thing, Ken said awkwardly. I would rather we not speak of that form, Kiba said, before a look of guilt formed on her face. In reality, I should be asking you that. I heard you all had to hold me off while I was in that state. Both Ken and Nara winced at the sheer disgust in Kiba's voice as she talked about herself, both knowing exactly what that felt like. A little. Ken lied, both him and Nara feeling a phantom pain in their chest as they recalled what happened. But it wasn't too bad. Thank goodness, Kiba said. If I had seriously ended up hurting you, I don't think I could truly forgive myself. Ken and Nara flinched, as once again, they felt pains in their chest. I'd also like to thank you for keeping me from killing that woman. Once again the disgust returned to Kiba's voice. Vile as she was, taking a life like that is something a monster would do. Thank you so much for not allowing such an act. You don't have to thank us, we were just doing what was right, Nara said, giving her a gentle smile. We're trying to become heroes after all, Ken said, forcing a confident smirk. Well, you two have already become heroes, in my eyes. Kiba smiled at them, with a very thankful but also tired look in her eyes. Now excuse me, I grow tired. I would like to take a nap. Neither Ken nor Nara noted how it was for her to be tired right when the sun was going down, and just let her make her way back to her tent, before looking at each other with very serious expressions. Do you think lying to her is really the best option? Nara asked with a look of concern. Of course it is. Ken shouted at her, causing Nara to flinch at the sudden aggression. Izuku told us we can't tell her about this. You wanna go behind his back after everything he did for us. Ken calmed down. Nara told him. I'm just asking. Ken took a moment, before letting out a deep breath, and looking away from his sister. Sorry, it's just. I know what it's like to become a monster. To just lose control of who you are to something else, and be completely helpless as you do awful things. It's a blessing she doesn't remember what happened. Ken Nara was about to once again reassure her brother that what happened was not his fault, but he cut her off by looking back up at her, with one of the most serious expressions she'd ever seen. She can never know what she did to us back there. Ever. Ken told her. Because I know that if I were her, and I found that out, I'd never be able to forgive myself. Thank you again Mr. and Mrs. Nagai, truly we appreciate you allowing us to stay here for the time being, Sai said, as she, Mr. Nagai, and his wife, as all three of them sat and had some tea together at the dinner table, late at night. I'm sure many others would have been more hesitant, given what's happened. And, still happening. It's no issue at all, we're more than happy to help the Midoriya family after such an awful tragedy. Mrs. Nagai said. Especially after he went through the trouble of getting me that raise, feeding 2 extra mouths is no problem. Mr. Nagai said, before raising his eyebrow. Actually now that I think about it. How did he do that? Sai shrugged. I have absolutely no idea. That boy is frighteningly capable. It was then that Amei and Yami came into the kitchen. Amei was in gaming mode and was practically bursting with energy. Yami. Not so much. The poor boy looked tired, to say the least. "Don't worry about us, we're just here to pick up some more gamer fuel," Amei said as she ran over to pull from her massive stash of Mountain Dew and Doritos. "You look like you are having fun, dear, just make sure not to stay up too late." Mr. Nagai chuckled as he watched his daughter grab her junk food excitedly while Yami watched and tried to keep his eyes open. "Sorry, but nope. Me and Yami are gonna keep gaming, all night long," Amei yelled as she ran out of the kitchen. Yami sighed as he followed her. "I'm going to die." As the two left the kitchen, Mr. Nagai laughed. "I'm so glad those two met. I've never seen my little girl look so happy before." "Yes, companionship truly is a wondrous thing," Sai chuckled. In Amei's room, the two kids sat in front of the screen, playing a co-op game together. "Alright, Yami, just focus your magic on the boss," Amei said, before looking at Yami's character, who was currently walking into a wall. "What are you?" Amei was interrupted when she felt Yami fall onto her shoulder. "You." Yami was currently struggling to stay awake, barely keeping his eyes open. Amei saw that her partner was struggling, and was snapped out of gamer mode for a minute. "Hey, you can go to sleep if you want. Not everyone is suited for hardcore gaming." Yami shook his head. "Wanna keep going? Want to keep making you happy? Pop." It was then that Amei's face went red, and pink candy started popping out of her body. As Yami lost his battle against his need for sleep, Amei just looked at her friend's sleeping form. "Oh, I'm just gonna keep falling, won't I? Game over." So that was the kids. Next chapter we'll get back to Izuku. Chapter 134, Plans for Tomorrow. In the home of Blue Blur, stationed in the living room, were three figures. Sitting on the couch was the hero, Blue Blur himself. The man was rather short and young-looking. One could almost mistake him for a teenager despite him being 35. As you might expect, his hair was bright blue, arranged in long spiny locks going down to his back, and it complemented his bright green eyes. He was currently wearing his hero outfit, which was just a blue hoodie and shorts, along with a pair of specially made, red and white shoes. Sitting next to him was a woman named Akibara, Maru's girlfriend and a biologist researching the capabilities of plants, and her appearance complemented that. She was a rather petite woman, almost as short as Blue, and had smooth green hair, with 2 roses growing out of the sides of her head. She was wearing a green and white dress, and a pair of green slippers. Both of them were looking up at Maru, who was looking at them with a huge grin on her face, and her twin tails wagging back and forth. "Okay, are gonna tell us what's got you so excited?" Blue asked, impatiently, leaning on the couch and tapping his foot. "You look like you are about to take off." "Yes, please tell us what happened. I'm curious who I have to thank for you being this adorably happy." Ugh, he giggled at the sight of her overjoyed girlfriend. Maru blushed. "Well, to you answer your question, dear, that would be none other than my new boss, Izuku Midoriya." Both Blue and Uki's eyes widened. Wait, Blue said, putting his hands in front of him to signal Maru to stop. "Wasn't the guy who got attacked by villains like 2 days ago?" "Yep, okay, it's kind of a long story, but let's start from the beginning." Mai slowed herself down, so she didn't confuse them. "So remember how I was talking about chaos energy and all the possible uses for it, and how I wish someone else would finally wake up to its potential besides me?" Kinda?" Blue shrugged, as he cleaned his ear. "I do. You were absolutely furious when they told you to move on to other projects." Ugh, he recalled her girlfriend ranting to her long into the night about the incompetence and laziness of her bosses and co-workers. "I was also quite intrigued by it. I wish I could have studied its effects on flora. Well, someone finally did see that I was right, and that person was Izuku Midoriya," Maru said proudly. Midoriya was finally about to get the kid who gives off the chaos energy into his care, and as he was reading the papers, he found some of my notes, and that piqued his interest. So he asked to speak with me personally, and I managed to convince him about its capabilities. And so he made me the head of the new Midoriya Foundation branch, for scientific research and development. That's great. But what does an orphanage need a scientific research and development branch for? Blue asked, looking even more confused. Well, technically the Midoriya Foundation is not an orphanage, rather a child care facility. Maru corrected. Blue rolled his eyes. Okay, question still stands, what does a child care facility need a research and development branch for? Who cares? I'm going to be the head of a new branch. I'll get as much freedom as I want to study and test chaos energy, and I get a big budget to do so. Maru shouted with enthusiasm, stars twinkling in her eyes. Yes, and we are very happy for you, but we would also like to know why a child care facility is interested in such a thing. Ugh, he told her in a calm voice. It is rather odd. I don't know, he just said he'd give me all the freedom and funding I wanted, so long as made some stuff for him at his request every now and then. Maru shrugged. I think he just wants me to help him increase security around his facility. Okay, that sounds reasonable, Blue said. I've already been working on a few tasks with him, just some basic stuff, fortifications, turrets, watchtowers, weaponizing his private army, stuff like that, Maru said causally. What was that last part? Uki stopped her. Oh yeah, so remember how Midoriya has those demon monster things? Well, he wants to see if I can increase their effectiveness, Maru explained. Experiment with them, weaponize them further, anything to make them more powerful and effective. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing their reaction to chaos energy. Something about this doesn't seem right, Uki said, looking at Maru with concern. I guess I understand his motive, but it seems like he's overreacting a bit. Then again, he was attacked by an army of villains. Yeah, but what are the chances that's gonna happen again? Blue asked. But if it does happen again, he might not get so lucky, and one of the kids could get hurt. Maru countered. He's still being targeted by the MLA, and because he's quirkless, he'll always be targeted by them, and other quirkist groups. Man, those guys are such scum. Blue spat in disgust. I can't wait until the police find out where those cowards are hiding, then I'll take him down myself. Well, if anything, I doubt Midoriya Izuku has any bad intentions. He seems like a good enough person from what I've heard of him. Uki still looked troubled. Although, while I'm happy to see someone recognizing your talents, I can't help but be concerned about this. Are you sure you can manage running an entire branch of a foundation by yourself? Of course, I can. Probably. Maru started thinking about it and cringed a bit. I don't really know how to handle hiring people, or instructing people, or managing. Maybe I do need a little help. Uki shook her head but smiled fondly. Always taking on big challenges, even if you don't know how to handle them. I suppose we can ask my mother about this, she has experience with this kind of thing. Then again, she did marry my father, so perhaps we should look elsewhere for advice. Yeah, but I was also wondering if maybe you'd wanna, come and work with me? Maru asked her nervously, looking away from her girlfriend with a blush on her face. Uki's eyes widened. I should have seen that coming, Blue smirked. Doesn't it feel a little off hiring your girlfriend before anyone else is a bit much? Not even being subtle here, Maru's face got much redder. Well, ha. I'm just messing with ya. It's fine. Blue chuckled as Maru glared at him, and pouted. I'd be more than happy to work with you, Uki said. Maru looked back at her girlfriend to see her smiling up at her, a bit of excitement lit up in her eyes. I had been wanting to research chaos energy's effect on flora, and I'll get to spend time with you more. Uki's face also turned slightly red as she said that out loud. It's a win-win. Maru's face absolutely lit up, a smile spreading across her face so wide it hurt, and her tails were just spinning around behind her. Yes. Oh, This is gonna be amazing. Currently, Izuku and Mr. Uraraka were standing in front of the now repaired Midoriya house. Well, that didn't take nearly as long as I thought, Mr. Uraraka said. Still, glad this is all over with so them kids can get back to living in a house again. Oh, they can't go back in yet, Izuku said, looking down at some blueprints in his hands. Your job was to repair the house, but that's far from the only construction that needed to happen around here. The barracks have also been completed, but construction on the laboratory, testing grounds, the turrets, the security towers, and of course now that the house is done, I need to get to work on adding a proper safe room and whoa there little boss, I get the picture, Mr. Uraraka said, stopping Izuku before he could go on a tangent. But how come I wasn't informed of any of this before? Sorry to say, but there wasn't really a need, Izuku told him, trying to put this in the best way possible. Unfortunately, your business simply doesn't have the tools required to handle things like that. You were really only here to help rebuild the house, everything else is being handled by more advanced companies. Mr. Uraraka sighed and shook his head. Yeah, I should have figured. Don't worry boy, I don't take offense to it. But still, you ain't overworking yourself again, are ya? Izuku sighed and rolled up the blueprints. Maybe. I do feel really tired. Maybe it is time I take a breather. Izuku stopped his sentence and pulled out his phone, and saw that, none other than Cole. Hold that thought. The stressed teen answered his phone and held it up to his ear. Hello? Mr. Midoriya, I'm glad to hear your voice. Izuku heard Cole breathe a sigh of relief. I just heard about the villain attack. Just now, it's been half a month. Izuku pointed out. Okay, I live in America. Do you know how rare it is for us to hear about news that happens outside the country? Cole pointed out. Fair enough, but don't worry, we're all fine over here, and we're working on fixing and improving the house and property, Izuku explained. When should I expect you here? Hopefully, I'll have everything done by then. Soonish, I'm leaving in about a week, so I should be there in about that amount of time, Cole said. Well, the house construction should be done by then at least. Izuku calculated. I apologize, but the time I give you to adjust before you start work might be short. I have a really full plate. I can imagine, and you don't need to apologize, believe me, people have asked far more ridiculous things of me, for much stupider reasons, Cole reassured him with a sigh. And at least you give me a heads up, rather than springing work on me out of nowhere. I'll be prepared when you need me. Thank you. Before Izuku could finish, suddenly, someone else called him. Nami. Izuku, now with a headache, sighed into the phone. Sorry, I have to take another call. That's fine, I'll speak to you before I leave, thank you, Cole said, before hanging up, allowing Izuku to pick up Nami's call. Hey buddy. Nami, for once, sounded strangely guilty, which made Izuku tense up, as he wondered what horrible thing must have happened to make Nami of all people feel guilt. I just wanna say, I'm sorry. What did you do? Izuku asked, sounding just utterly exasperated. Me? Nothing but I know you have a lot on your plate, like, a lot, but I kinda gotta add more. Sorry dude, we need to have another meeting. Nami said apologetically. Why? Izuku asked, not sounding any less tired. Well, remember that assassin girl, the first one, not the second one. The one with the horns. Nami said. The one that was in coma. Well, she's awake. Izuku was silent for a while, taking in the sheer amount of work that statement implied, before taking a deep breath. Call me a car, I'll sleep on the way there. Izuku wasted no time when he got to the DOC building, telling the agents to quickly guide him to the meeting room, and once he made it there, he immediately entered the room, where Nami was waiting for him. What's the situation? Izuku asked immediately, wanting to get this meeting over with so he could get back to work. around 24 or 26 hours ago, the girl, I think her name was Nice or something, woke up from her coma. Nami was cut off. If she woke up that long ago, why was I only now informed? Izuku asked her curtly, having approximately zero patience right now. Well, the police had to talk with her first, and then we had to report it to the higher-ups, and then to you, Nami explained. So that's why it took so long. Understandable. Izuku sighed. Please continue. Alright, so she woke up, and yeah, she has amnesia, Nami explained with an apologetic look. Izuku facepalmed. Of course she does. You couldn't get any information from her? None. We tried to repair her mind with quirks. But unfortunately, her physics-based quirk caused complications with any quirks trying to affect her mind. Like it's resisting our attempts. Nami sighed. Because of course, nothing can be simple. Ugh. Izuku groaned. If that was the case, then even Kyoko wouldn't be able to do anything to help here. Although, maybe that's a good thing. Kids shouldn't have to remember being assassins. Yeah, but it sure as hell makes our job so much forking harder. Nami groaned. Izuku shook his head before moving on to the next topic. Anyway, what's going to happen to her now? Well, she'll be transferred to your care as soon as possible. Nami sighed. Sorry man, but DOC doesn't want to waste any resources holding her, so it's from the hospital to your house. I should have known. Izuku rubbed the bridge of his nose. So I'll be receiving 4 people once the house is repaired. 4? Nami raised an eyebrow. I have a new employee coming in, with her daughter, Izuku explained. Don't worry about it. Although, I'll also be looking for more hired help, so I might need to make even more accommodations. Man, I would hate to be you dude, Nami told him. I know this sounds kind of impossible in your situation, but please make sure you don't overwork yourself again. Remember, everyone screw if you die. Izuku, believe me, I remember. Word from the author and do not misinterpreted it for your narrator's words. The one saying it is. The author got it? Alright. Hey everyone. So this chapter was pretty much an update as to what's going to be happening. Both Izuku and I are not having a good time right now. I can for sure say that 2022 is the worst year of my life. I got sick, had a full mental breakdown, went to a psych ward, am still recovering from a said breakdown, and now my grandfather is dying. So yeah, my grandfather. He's likely not going to last more than a week or two. At the very least, the writing's been on the wall for a while now, so I've had time to process this. However, due to my current mental state, it's still rather difficult for me, to say the least. This combined with the fact that I'll have to attend his funeral and wake means you might have to wait a week between chapters for a little while. Sorry, but, on to less depressing topics. We got 2 new characters here. Blue Blur is obviously based on Sonic, and Uki is based on a lesser-known Sonic character. Cosmo from Sonic X. Sonic played a very big part in life, being the franchises that introduced me to things like fandoms, fanfics, YouTube, and much, much more. Sonic X was my first anime, besides Pokemon. Obviously, it's not gonna take over the story or anything. You likely won't see much of Blue, but you will see Maru and Uki, as they will bring some new antics that I can write about. Anyway, please review, I need those now more than ever. Reading your thoughts on my stories is something I treasure, so please tell me what you thought of this chapter. Chapter 135, Back in Business. Alright everyone, finally the Midoriya Foundation building is officially repaired. Izuku announced, standing on the stairs of the now repaired building, looking down at all the children and Sori, who were standing in front of him eagerly waiting to be let in. Yee. The children cheered. Finally I can go back to the safety of my room. Fuku almost cried tears of joy, with patting her on the back. I think you've been doing great, Fuku. You were super helpful back at camp, Kree assured her cheerfully. Yes, Your cooking ability was absolutely essential to our survival. Kiba praised her. I just can't wait to get back to work on the game, Ken said. Indeed. Yonda said. Although with Yami still not here, it'll likely take a bit longer. Sorry about that, but Yami still needs to be with Mai so that way he can get more negativity in the city, Izuku told them. But don't worry, I'm sure he and Mai will visit every now and again. Can we go inside now? I want to play video games with everyone again. Netsu asked. Yes, but before anything, there is something I need to show you all, Izuku told them. Izuku brought all the children inside, into the entry hall, and walked right towards the wall past the stairs. He then pressed down on a secret hidden button on the wall, and the wall opened up, revealing a hidden room. Whoa! Most of the kids and Sori gasped as Izuku brought them into the secret room. It was rather basic. Just a metal room, with some futons, and crates full of supplies. This is the new safe room, Izuku explained, before pointing at the crates. In those crates are lots of food and water, just in case you ever need to stay in here for a long time. The room's not as durable as the training room, but it's hidden. Meaning that no one can warp in here. Speaking of which, everyone, it's very important that none of you mention this room to anyone. Especially you, Kiba. If villains like that mist guy find out about this place, then it'll no longer be as safe. Understood? Yes. The children answered, understanding the importance of keeping this secret. All right, now, all of you are free to go, Izuku told them. Yeah. The children cried as they ran out of the room, all looking to get things back to normal. Can I go too, boss? Sori asked him hopefully. I want to go eat some tuna. Not yet, there's a room I have to show you, Izuku told her. Izuku brought Sori into a room on the second floor, one that was covered in screens, displaying the forest and the house. There were also several seers on one side of the room, as well as several terminals with buttons on them, underneath the screens. This is the security room. Here you can see all the cameras set up throughout the property, Izuku explained, before mourning over the terminals. And here are the controls for the defenses. Defenses? I thought the monsters were the defenses? Sori asked. Yes, but I also added something new, Izuku explained, before pressing a button on the terminal. Suddenly, in the forest, a hidden turret popped out of the ground. Whoa, you're really not messing around, boss. Sori whistled, as Izuku pressed another button, causing the turret to go back into the ground. I never mess around when it comes to my children's safety, Izuku told her seriously. I don't really need to explain anything more about this room to you. I doubt you'd remember what most of these buttons do, to be honest. Yeah, you're probably right. Sori agreed. And that sounds super boring anyway. I'll leave most of this to Sai, Izuku told her. Alright, you are free to go. Thanks, boss. Sori said as she sped out of the room. Ring, ring. Once she left, Izuku breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, 2-hour nap. Then back to work. Finally. Fuku's back. Where she belongs. Fuku said as she entered her room, a look of pure relief on her face. The lavender-haired girl jumped on her bed, flopping face first onto her sheets, and digging her head into her pillow. Oh bed, how Fuku missed you. She then jumped up, ran over to her window, and picked up her Venus flytrap. Aren't you glad to be home, Petey? Of course, the plant didn't talk back, and Fuku eventually set it down, before sitting back down on her bed. It was nice having solid walls around her again. The flimsy wall of the tents provided little comfort to Fuku, especially after such a harrowing attack. It didn't help that she could hear everything that went on outside, and every little noise that happened around her tent convinced Fuku that there was gonna be another villain attack. Thankfully Fuku's tent was isolated, meaning no one got exposed to all the gas she'd been pumping out. After taking some more time to soak in the feeling of returning to her room, Fuku wondered what to do next. Should I get back to work so soon? I mean, I know Yonda said that we need to focus on the game, but Fuku sighed and pouted a bit. I really wanna just relax and watch some anime. I'm sure they won't mind if I just watch a few episodes before I get back to work. Welcome back, my minions, Kiba said into the camera, as she started up her stream in her room. Your queen has returned. At long last. For 1,000 years she'd lain dormant, and now the Queen of Eternal Darkness has arisen. Lady Kiba has risen. Celebrate and bask in her presence. I know the wait has been long and agonizing, but at long last, my fortress has been repaired. Kiba beamed at the camera confidently, happy to be able to produce content for her loyal fans once again. And to celebrate my return, it's time to continue my Elden Ring Let's Play. Alright. Rage time. Thank you, Lady K. Sheena opened the door to her room and just stared at the room inside. It wasn't anything grand. It was just a basic room. But it was hers. Her room. At the Midoriya Foundation. Yes, she'd been adopted by Izuku for a month now, but staying in the camps. She just hadn't quite felt like she was a part of the family now. She took a few steps into the room, and then fell to her knees, as tears started falling from her eyes. It worked. It really worked. I'm free. For her entire life, she longed for this. To be free of the horrible system she'd been unfortunately born into. When she'd heard of the raid on the Midoriya Foundation, she knew that was her chance, but now, here she was. It worked. She'd never have to kill again. Yes, it must be such a relief. Sheena turned around and saw Yonda standing in her doorway with a smile on her face. I was quite happy when I got my room too. Yonda told her, inviting herself in. It really gives the feeling of being away from all that stuff from the past. Like you're getting a new start. Like you're part of the family. Wow, she is scary. Sheena thought automatically. She hadn't talked with many of the children. Given her less than stellar first impression, many of the other children were wary of her, and as such Sheena decided it was best to hide away in her tent. The only person she'd really talked to was Yonda had also never seemed afraid of her, but the same could not be said in reverse. The psychic girl reminded her of all her least favorite people. Clever people. Filled with lies and ambitions. And she just seemed so much smarter than she should be, and her ability to read her thoughts gave her goosebumps. Sheena's eyes widened as she realized Yonda heard what she just thought. Wait. I didn't mean that, ha 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 ha. Sheena cringed, as she heard Yonda laughing inside of her head. Oh dear, don't worry, I don't mind. There are just some people, or rather a lot people, who just don't feel comfortable around me. For good reason. But you don't have to worry. I'm not gonna do anything to you. I have reason to. After all, while the others are unsure of you given where you came from, I know better. I know you. Our tents were rather close by, you see, and well, I can hear thoughts through walls. Sheena's eyes widened with shock and fear, and she fell back on her butt and started scooting away from Yonda. Wait. Were you listening to my thoughts for a month? Indeed I have. And because of that, I can now say I trust you. About 90%. You're not some hardened assassin. Yonda smiled at her. Just a scared little girl, happy to be free, with no idea what to do now. Sheena gulped. She wasn't used to this. Back with the MLF, the only thing she really had was her private thoughts. But Yonda could hear everything and read her like the back of her hand. It was terrifying. Oh, don't be so scared, I'm on your side. Yonda told her, putting her hands behind her back. Because you and I have a common goal. I doubt that, Sheena tried to think of something to respond with, but she was too scared. Yonda sighed and shook her head. No, this won't do, you're much too terrified. She then pulled out a piece of candy from her pocket and threw it onto Sheena's lap. Eat it. Now. Not wanting to figure out what would happen if she refused, Sheena quickly proceeded to unwrap and eat the candy. Quickly she felt her nerves start to calm, and she released the breath she'd been holding up to now. Feeling better? It's calming candy. It's made by an acquaintance of ours, who can make candy that can affect emotions. Yonda explained, and now that you're calmer, let me explain a bit. When I said we had similar goals. You see, I like there to be a positive vibe in this house. Positive thoughts are so much nicer to listen to than negative thoughts, and so having the others continue to not trust you, would go against my interest. Does that make sense? I guess. Sheena still didn't trust her, but she did make sense. Go. And of course, you want to be liked by the other, right? Yonda asked her. Yes. Where is this going? Sheena asked fearfully. Where it's going, Sheena my dear, is that we should, and should I mean will, work together, to improve your image with the others. Yonda explained to her. Isn't that wonderful? Not really, you're really scary. I mean yes. Sheena quickly corrected. Good. Now, the best way to do that is to use your skills to help improve the household. Yonda told her. Unfortunately, the only things you are adept at are murder and reading. Not that that's your fault, I suppose. You were given little opportunity for much else. Thanks for reminding me. Sheena thought bitterly, before again realizing Yonda could hear her. I mean now obviously it'll be difficult to use such skills, but I found a way. You're welcome. Yonda continued with a smile. Tonight you'll be joining Kin reading bedtime stories to Kai. I already went through the liberty of informing her. She'll be coming to get you around bedtime. You couldn't have asked me first? Sheena asked her with a bit of despair in her tone. Oh? Do you not want to improve your reputation? Or do you find reading to someone else that bad? Yonda asked her. Well, no. Sheena thought. Perfect, then be ready by tonight, don't want to disappoint anyone. Yonda told her, as she made her way to the door. Have a nice first day in the house. We'll talk more later. For now, enjoy your time. I'd suggest finding some new hobbies. Remember, you are free to choose. And with that, Yonda closed the door, leaving Sheena alone in her room. Do I? Sheena thought to herself, with a sigh. It's not that she had a problem with reading stories to Kai, especially if K was going to be there. But didn't like that that choice had been made for her. She'd had enough of that for one lifetime. At least I know what I'm doing now. Sheena sighed. Meanwhile, Yonda was just exiting Sheena's room with a smile on her face. Well, that wasn't very nice, was it? Yonda's eyes widened, and she quickly turned around to see Fu right behind her. Fu. How did you sneak up on me? I was just brain dead for a little while. Fu explained with a shrug. Made my head so empty you couldn't even read my thoughts. But I could still hear everything happening around me, including your little conversation. Yonda groaned. You are insanely inconvenient for me, you know that? You're smart, difficult to manipulate, you enjoy being embarrassed so I can't even blackmail you, and now you can sneak up on me. Well, someone needs to keep you in check. Fu said. Speaking of which, give the poor girl a break. If she's being truthful like you said, then she's been through enough, don't you think? Oh please. Yonda rolled her eyes. Life doesn't stop for anyone or anything, and the sooner she gets people to trust her the better. Better for her, or better for you? Fu asked with his arms crossed. Yes. Yonda answered. The sooner is over, the sooner we can both enjoy our time here without that eating away at us. Well, you have a point. But still, don't just boss her around, or else I'm telling Izuku. Fu threatened. Oh, come on. Yonda whined. That girl is so timid and scared of me it'll take forever to get anything done with her. Well, here's a thought, maybe make her less afraid of you. Fu rolled his eyes. Either way, tone down your help or else. Understood. Ugh. Fine. Yonda agreed, knowing she didn't really have a choice. Good. Remember, I have my eyes on you. Fu told her, before turning and walking away. Yonda sighed. This is going to take much longer now. Great. Word from the author, hey guys, I'm back. Sorry, it's been so long since I last uploaded, but well, the situation got worse for a while. My parents decided it would be a good idea to give me THC without my permission or knowledge. Unfortunately, my body has a bad reaction to THC, which caused quite a few problems. But now I've started to recover some more, so hopefully, I can get back to posting chapters. Now, this chapter was just to establish the new safe room and Sheena's place in the house. As well, the house being rebuilt, of course. Next chapter we'll start bringing in the many newcomers. Chapter 136, Nice and Easy. The day right after the house was repaired, Izuku went to the hospital. Thankfully this time, it wasn't for himself. Rather, he was here for someone else. Izuku buddy, glad you're here, Nami said as she met Izuku in the halls of the hospital, the two of them walking down it with DOC agents on both sides of them, escorting them down. Early as usual. I'm surprised you're here early, Izuku replied. Actually, I'm late. The time I'm required to be here, and the time you're supposed to be here, are very different. Nami sighed. Sometimes, very rarely, it pays to be you. Metaphorically speaking, that is, in terms of cash it always pays to be you. What's the status on the girl? Izuku asked, getting straight to the point. Well, she woke up in a hospital, no memory of who she was, surrounded by armed guards, and was constantly assaulted by questions she didn't have the answer to and that implied not so nice things, Nami explained. Take a guess at her status. Izuku sighed. Have you at least confirmed she's not dangerous? Yeah. Mostly, Nami answered. She doesn't want to hurt anyone if that's what you're worried about, but she's weak, scared, and has no idea how to use her quirk, so if she freaks out, she might accidentally break a few bones. Izuku gave an even deeper sigh. But we're sure she doesn't want to kill me? Like I told you, if you die we're screwed. So naturally, we made sure that her amnesia was the real deal, and that she had no intention of harming you before we'd ever let you two meet face to face. Nami reassured him. And with that cloak, you'll be fine. That's not as reassuring as you think it is. Izuku shook his head. Soon enough, the two arrived at a room with two armed guards. Izuku took a deep breath. Well, let's just hope for the best. With that, Izuku entered the room. Despite the guards outside, inside was just a fairly standard hospital room. Inside on the bed, was Nice herself, looking at Izuku with a terrified expression. For a few seconds, there was silence, as Izuku slowly entered the room, getting a bit closer to her hospital bed, while he waited for her to ask questions that never came. After almost a minute, Izuku realized the girl was waiting for him to speak. So he put on his friendliest smile and spoke in his warmest voice. Hello there, I am Director Midoriya Izuku, head of the Midoriya Foundation. But you can call me Izuku, or Midoriya. Or whatever you'd like really. It's pleasure to meet you. Me. Doraya, Nose repeated in a timid voice. I heard that name. They said they would send me to you. Is that bad? No. It's a good thing. You see, I run a facility for children who are special. Izuku chose his words carefully. I've heard you had some issues with your quirk. The girl looked away, fear and guilt reflecting in her eyes, confirming Izuku's statement. Well, I'm here to help you with that, Izuku explained to her. You'll be taken out of this place and to my home, where I'll take care of you and help you learn to control your quirk, so you don't accidentally hurt anyone. Nice looked at him, slightly less fearfully now. You're going to take care of me? Izuku nodded. That's right, and you'll be surrounded by other wonderful kids, just like you. And other people who will help and protect you. Nice didn't respond. Instead she looked down and adopted a thoughtful expression, as well as looking quite confused. Izuku took on a sympathetic look. I understand this must be overwhelming. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. The girl immediately looked back up at him, hope welling in her desperate eyes. Really? Really? Izuku nodded. Nise looked relieved and took a few seconds to get her thoughts together. Who am I? What happened to me? Where are my stop asking questions? Smack. Ah! Nise cried, as suddenly one of her vectors smacked her in the face. Nise? Izuku rushed forward and looked at her left cheek, which was now red. What happened? Did you lose control of your quirk again? Did you hear that? Nise asked him, looking around wondering where that voice came from. Hear what? Izuku asked, looking confused. He looked around as well, but no one was there but them. A minute of silence passed before Nise concluded that no one was around them. She looked back up at Izuku. Who am I? What happened to me? Where are my parents? Yes, of course you'd ask that. Izuku sighed, as he stepped back and tried to think of a way to explain things without giving away too much. Was I a bad person? Nise asked in a very low voice, once again looking frightened, and clutching her blanket. Those people keep asking if I want to kill someone. Why would they ask that? Did I hurt someone? Was a bad guy? No. Izuku quickly reassured her, before realizing he had to explain. Well, you weren't a bad person at least. Unfortunately, we don't know much about your background, but what we do know is that your parents were not good people. They treated you badly, and they forced you to try and hurt me. But before you could get close to me, you ran into one of my sons and got into a fight. He won and hit you a bit too hard in the head, which is how you ended up here without your memory. The girl stayed silent for a while, taking in and processing Izuku's words. I tried to hurt you? You were forced to, Izuku reassured her. From what Fu told me, you didn't really want to. That didn't seem to improve her mood much, and the girl is still looking down at her bedsheets with tears glimmering in the corner of her eyes. Maybe I should have lied a bit more, Izuku thought to himself as he tried to think of a way to reassure her. In the end, he ended up going up to her bed and putting a hand on her head. The girl flinched, but thankfully she didn't push him away, instead, just looking up at him curiously. It's not your fault. And besides, that's all in the past now. Your parents can't make you do any more bad things. Izuku told her. You're free to do whatever it is you want to do. Whatever I want to do, Nise repeated, before looking back down at her bed. What I want to do? What do I want to do? I don't know, and it's okay if you don't either, Izuku said with a smile. Because we're going to find out. And I'll do everything I can to help you. Really? Nise asked looking up at Izuku hopefully. Izuku nodded. Really? Nise just kept looking up at him, hope brimming in her eyes, and eventually, tears. Suddenly Izuku felt something touch his back and push him forward, where he then stumbled into Nise's embrace. Thank you. Nise cried as she buried her head into Izuku's stomach. Thank you. SHSSSH. It's okay. Izuku told her, as he started petting her head. Everything's going to be okay. Fu is currently once again in the library, enjoying a good book when suddenly his phone started ringing. The undead boy looked down at the phone and saw that it was none other than Izuku calling. Hey, Dad. Fu started as she picked up the call. What's up? Hey Fu, so I'm not gonna be back home tonight, Izuku explained, and Fu could practically hear him wince. Why? Fu asked immediately. You didn't get kidnapped by another child again, did you? No. No. Kind of. Izuku answered, causing Fu to sigh. It's not that I got kidnapped, I just can't leave right now. Just tell me what's going on? Fu asked. Well, do you remember that nice girl that you defeated a while back? Izuku asked him. Please don't tell us she's coming to live with us? Fu asked. How did you know? Izuku responded, shocked he figured it out so quickly. Why? Fu asked, not even bothering with Izuku's question. She tried to kill you. Sheena is one thing, but that girl really wanted you dead. How can DOC think this is a good idea? And wait a minute. Are you with her right now? Yes, Izuku revealed. Fu wanted to slam his head into the table. I could have sworn you said you'd be taking better care of your health. I can explain. Izuku said quickly. She has amnesia, you see. So she doesn't want to kill me anymore. And what happens if her memory comes back? Fu asked. Are we even sure that she really has amnesia? We are sure that she has amnesia. DOC checked out her head as best they could, so we know she's not faking it. Izuku assured him. And people don't typically get their memories back after losing them. That's mostly just TV stuff. Either way, it's not really like I have much of a choice. Even if I wanted to refuse, I couldn't. She's an OPC, and since she no longer wants to kill me, DOC sees no reason not to give her to me immediately. If I tried to refuse, I'd be going against the agreement I signed, which would have very dire consequences. Fu sighed. Ugh. Well, why does this mean you can't leave? As you can imagine, waking up in a hospital surrounded by guards with no memory of anything, and not being able to see her parents, has taken a toll on her mentally, Izuku explained. Right now I'm the only person she really trusts, and well, she doesn't want to leave her side just yet. And she can't go with me until tomorrow, so. Alright, so what do you want me to do? Fu asked. Do you mean to tell everyone so they don't freak out when you show up tomorrow? Yeah, sorry to burden you with this, but I can't leave her right now, Izuku said apologetically. I understand. You have that cloak on, right? Fu asked. Of course, Izuku confirmed. Alright, keep your guard up, and be careful, Fu told him before sighing. Hopefully the others take this well. What do you mean the assassin girl is coming to live here? Fu sighed, as Kiba held him, grabbing both his arms so tight he was sure she'd broken some bones. The boy had gathered everyone in the cafeteria. Of course Miu was nowhere to be seen, and Fuka was hiding under a table where she thought no one could see her, and told them the news about Nice. They reacted about as well as you can expect. I just told you, she has amnesia, doesn't want to kill Dad anymore, and she's an OPC, Fu explained. So naturally, she'd end up here. There's nothing natural about it at all. Fuka objected. She wanted to kill Izuku, so why is she coming to live here? What if she gets her memories back? Yeah, I may not be the brightest, but I'm pretty sure this is a bad idea, Sori spoke up. I don't want to hear that coming from you of all people, Fu said, glaring at Sori a bit. Look, I don't like this either, but it's what's happening, so get over it. Easy for you to say, some of us react like normal people. Ken scoffed before Nara elbowed him for insensitivity. Ow. What was that for? I also want everyone to remember that not only does she have amnesia, but her original reason for wanting to kill Dad was because her parents mistreated her, and she was desperate for attention. Fu crossed his arms. Let's not pretend some of us here wouldn't have killed someone if you thought it would make your parents love you. TCH. Low blow. Ken muttered. She was a victim, a dangerous victim, but still the victim, Fu told everyone. And now, at her right now, she's not dangerous anymore. So don't treat her poorly. Easier said than done, Kiba replied, before letting Fu go, and looking over to Sheena in the back of the room, staying silent. Sheena, do you know anything about this girl, Nice? Sheena shook her head. No. Nice probably isn't even her real name. When we're sent on missions we usually used fake names to hide our identities. Great, somehow we know even less about her now, Kiba grunted. I understand your frustration, dear sister, but do calm yourself. Yonda told her. Father no idiot, and he knows what's at stake if he dies. If he didn't think this was safe, then he wouldn't have done it, especially not so soon after his collapse. As a mind reader, I can vouch that he thinks more about his safety than he used to. Kiba didn't look very reassured. Actually, Yonda, Dad gave you orders to keep an eye on her. To be specific, your room is right next to hers. Fu told her. Wonderful, I was intending on doing that anyway, this just makes things easier. Yonda said, sounding very pleased. Everyone else, if you can't trust her for now, just avoid her, but don't make it obvious you doing so, Fu told them. That's also just, feel free to do whatever it is you were doing. With that, Fu walked away, leaving them all to deal with the aftermath of the news. Everyone, I know you must hate the idea of father being at risk, and so do I. Yonda stated. But as Sheena here has shown, being an MLA assassin wasn't really a choice. Yeah, but Sheena never really tried to kill anyone, Nara argued. This girl, on the other hand, was dead set on killing Izuku. Even I'm not sure about this, Sheena admitted, fidgeting uncomfortably. Well, rest assured, dear siblings, if this girl has a single thought about harming our dear father, I will now. And then Sheena gave them all a very dangerous smile. And she won't ever get the chance to act. Author's notes. Alright, as you can see, we are starting to introduce the new characters into the foundation. This is pretty much the next arc in a way, bringing in the new phase of the story. Chapter 137, Lending a Hand. Izuku was careful not to move too much in the car, as a DOC agent drove him and Nise to the Midoriya Foundation. Nise was currently sitting next to Izuku, and by next to him that meant she was clutching his side. Considering he was still wearing his robe, Izuku needed to be very careful when he moves, otherwise one of the bony parts would poke her. So, are you excited to see your new home? Izuku asked her hopefully, trying to plant some positive thoughts in her head, and start a conversation. Yes. Nise said, sounding completely unsure. And the conversation ended right there. Izuku didn't know what he was expecting. It'd be hard to get a conversation from someone who barely knew anything and was still quite frightened. It's gonna take a while before she gets comfortable. Izuku sighed, as the car approached the facility. The car pulled up the gates, and Izuku pressed a button on his phone to open them. Quickly, the car pulled up to the house, stopping in front of it. Are you ready? Izuku said, looking down at Nise. Nise hesitated, but eventually, she looked up, and nodded, taking Izuku's hand to comfort herself. Izuku opened the door, and the two exited the car, closing the door behind them, as the car drove off. Welcome home, Nise. The two walking into through the door, with Nise holding his hand and walking behind him. And the moment they stepped in, they were met with Fu, waiting for them a few feet away. Hey, welcome home. Fu greeted. He looked over at Nise, who shrunk away behind Izuku's cloak. You must be Nise then. Nice to meet you. My name is Fu, short for Fuhai. But please don't call me that. And this then Kyozai popped out a tentacle head, causing Nise to flinch. Is Kyozai, Fu said, before Kyozai sunk back into his body. He's my brother. But we're kind of sharing a body. Don't worry about it, you'll understand more later. Okay, Nise said quietly, relaxing a little bit now that Fu had introduced himself. Izuku moved away from Nise, before kneeling down to meet her eye to eye. I have to deal with some paperwork, meaning I'm going to be busy for a little while, but Fu's going to show you around. Is that okay? Nise wanted to refuse, but she also didn't want to make Izuku angry. He was her only ally right now and she was terrified of losing him. She looked at Fu and there was something about him that seemed familiar. Like she'd seen him somewhere before. She just needed to try and remember a bit. You don't have to go back to them. Nise shouted out in pain, falling to her knees as suddenly her head started to hurt like hell. Ag. Nise? Izuku shouted out in concern and confusion. It seems like you are one of us. The ones who got unlucky at birth, parents whose love you have to earn aren't real parents. Do you really want to live like that? A slave to you, that's enough. And suddenly, it stopped. The pain disappeared as quickly as it came, and Nise was left on her knees, clutching her head and hyperventilating. Nice. Nice. You need to calm down. Just breathe, okay? In and out. Izuku instructed her. In and out. Fu had also ran in and massaged circles into her back to try and help her calm down. After a couple minutes, Nice managed to get her breathing back under control. Are you okay? Is anything hurting? Can you stand? Izuku asked her rapid-fire questions as he tried not to panic. I'm okay, Nice said, sounding extremely unsure. My head just hurts. And I heard some weird voices. Most of them sounded like him? Izuku and Fu looked at each other before looking back at her. Did some of your memories come back? Izuku asked her, feeling a bit growing in his stomach. I don't think so, Nice answered. I don't remember anything but some words. Did I meet him before? Guess that cat's out of the bag. Fu thought. We met before when you first showed up here. Unfortunately, we got into a fight. But I don't hold it against you. You didn't really have much of a choice. So he was the one I fought. Nice felt a twinge of guilt. But at the same time, she also felt strangely reassured. Maybe it was because she knew he could handle her if she lost control of her quirk, but there was something else as well. Something was telling her to trust him. Given how little she knew, she'd have to follow that instinct. I'm sorry. Nice apologized, looking at Fu while also trying to understand why she felt the way that she did. Like I said, no problem, Fu said, before extending his hand. Do you want to come with me? Or do you need to stay with Dad? Nice hesitated, but after a few moments, but ultimately, she took his hand and let him help her up. I'll go with you. Good. First, let me show you your room, Fu said, as he took her by the hand and guided her away. As Fu took her away, Nice looked back at Izuku. I'll see you a bit later, just remember, you're safe here, Izuku reminded her before she eventually was out of sight. After a few moments, Izuku heard someone speak in his head. Something is very wrong with that girl. Yonda revealed herself, hiding behind the staircase, just out of sight. What do you mean, something is wrong? Izuku asked her quickly, as he started preparing himself for the worst. Did she get her memories back? Does she want to kill anyone? I don't think so, but I'm not sure, Yonda said, sounding a bit unsettled. When she was on her knees, I couldn't hear her thoughts clearly. What? Izuku looked at her in shock. It was like something was fighting inside of her head. Yonda explained as best she could. I've never heard anything like it before. I did hear what I think was Fu's voice, and another voice that sounded like hers, but it was angry. This is… Damn it, why can't anything be simple? Izuku cursed, before sighing. You're sure she didn't have any thoughts about hurting anyone? Yonda shook her head. I didn't hear anything like that while she was freaking out, nor anything like that after. But this is very, very strange. I'm definitely going to have to keep watch of her. Please do. Izuku rubbed his temple. I feel terrible for having to rely on you like this. Am I really going to need to give you an allowance for spying on people? I really don't want to encourage that. Oh father, it's far too late for that, Yonda told him. And I don't need an allowance for this. Just remember all my hard work when I do something wrong. Izuku sighed again. Just please go after them. And this is your room, Fu told Nice, as he opened the door to her room. Nice looked inside, letting go Fu's hand to get a good look at where she would be living from now on. I know it's a bit plain, but you're free to decorate it in any way you'd like, Fu told her. Decorate? How would I decorate it? Nice thought to herself. I don't know what I like. It was starting to get as frustrating as it was scary, not knowing anything about herself. Because it left her confused and not knowing what to do. Well, do you want to stick around here for a while, or would you like to explore the rest of the building? Fu asked her. It's pretty big, so it might take a while. and I'd understand if you just want to relax in here for a while." Nice considered the offer. While part of her was a bit scared of wandering around and bumping into people she didn't know, but what would she even do in here? Think about how much she doesn't know. At least going around the house would give her something to do. "I want to explore," Nice answered. "Huh. Well, okay then," Fu said, before turning around. "Make sure to follow me, don't want you getting lost." "So this is the library," Fu said, as he guided Nice into the book-filled room. "You can read, right?" Nice nodded, as she looked around the room, her eyes landing on one of the tables, where Ken and Nara had been studying and were now trying to stay as quiet as possible. "Oh, so those two are here," Fu said, noticing the pair. "The girl is Nara, and the stupid-looking one is her brother Ken." "Hey!" Ken shouted out in annoyance, turning to glare at Fu. Then, Nice and Ken made eye contact, and after looking at each other for just a moment, Ken scowled and turned away again. Nice frowned, wondering if she did something wrong. Or maybe he's upset because I tried to hurt Mr. Izuku. Seeing Nice's expression fall, Fu stepped in. "Don't worry about them. Anyway, let's go." Fu turned Nice around, and the two exited the room. And as they left, a squishy sound coming from the ceiling followed. Fu showed her around the rest of the house, the game room, the pool, the sports room, etc. And Nice would have tried to consider the things she could do in those rooms, if not for how uncomfortable she was. Every time they ran into someone, they seemed very cold towards her, never looking her in the eyes for more than a second, if at all. And then of course there was the constant feeling of being watched. After the tour was done, Fu brought her back to her room. "Well, that's pretty much everywhere in the house." "Well, everywhere important," Fu told her. "It should be about time for lunch. Just stay here, and I'll go get it for you." And with that, Fu left, closing the door and leaving Nice to her thoughts. "Well, this place is better than the hospital," Nice surmised. The hospital had felt completely cold and hostile. Everyone either seemed to not care about her, or seem actively hostile. No one told her anything, and it would have been boring if it wasn't so terrifying. But here it was. Well, it was still kind of cold and hostile. It seemed like she'd left an impression on this place that wasn't exactly good. But at least Izuku and Fu were nice enough, and more than happy to explain things to her if she asked. Maybe things were really looking up for her. Then the door opened, and a black-cloaked figure, with a scythe for a hand, came in. Nice flinched, and stepped back, looking at the imposing figure carrying a weapon, with fear. "Who are you?" "That's what I should be asking you," Yami responded, his voice as cold and emotionless as ever. Along with, "Do you really have amnesia? Are you a MLA spy? Are you trying to kill Izuku?" "What? No." Nice was overwhelmed, and scared. She kept backing up until she hit a wall, right under the window. With Nice's back against a wall, Gami began moving forward, raising their scythe. "I worked too hard to escape. I won't let them take me back. If you really have amnesia, then prove it." Then, Gami charged forward, and everything went black. So Nice's first day here was sure an eventful one. Chapter 138, Throwing Hand Sheet. Gami, Sheena didn't like to curse, but sheet was the only word they could think of to describe this horrible situation. The situation being that, when they had charged at Nice, two things happened. 1. Nice's expression suddenly changed. The scared and confused look in her eyes was suddenly replaced with cold fury. And the second thing that happened, was that Gami was grabbed by one of Nice's vectors and chucked out the window. Of course, the first problem, the least concerning one, was that Gami was now falling out of a building. The solution to this was simple. Gami quickly cut their own arm and killed their flightlessness. Immediately, black wings burst out of their back, and with a flap, Gami was now flying. Gami flew up to the window and faced his second biggest problem. That being that Nise certainly didn't seem to have amnesia. The two stared each other down, seeing who would make the first move. In the end, it was Gami, as they charged forward, moving as fast as possible towards Nise, in hopes of getting the single hit they needed. Only to be batted away by Nise's vectors, sending them flying over towards the forest. Nise then ran over to the window, and jumped out of it, while using her vectors, to launch herself into the air, after Gami. Gami meanwhile, tried to regain their sense of balance, however by the time they stabilized themselves in the air, Nise had already reached them, grabbing them with one of her vectors in the air, and slamming them down. Crash. Gami hit the ground, in what he was sure would have been an agonizing experience if he could feel pain. That quirk is going to make things difficult for sure, Gami thought as they picked themselves off the ground, while Nise slowly came to the ground, using her vectors to grab onto the trees and lower herself gently. I need to find a way to get past those vectors. When Nise reached the ground, she glared at Gami. I don't want to fight you. I don't want to fight you either, Gami admitted, while not at all looking like they wanted to stand down. But I can't let you ruin everything. Slice. Gami then cut the ground and seemingly nothing happened. But then they cut the ground again, and something immediately happened. Suddenly, everything started to move as if it was on ice. The dirt, rocks, and grass moved and shifted, and the trees started to move through the ground and fall over. And Nise immediately fell on her butt and started slipping backward, while Gami took to the air once more. What the? Nise shouted, as she tried to stop herself from slipping, by digging her vectors into the dirt, but that didn't work and she kept slipping. Unfortunately for her, nothing would keep her from slipping, as Gami had killed all the friction in the area. But immediately, she noticed an even more pressing issue, that being that without friction, even the trees that were rooted in the ground, couldn't keep still, and as such the trees were now falling down. And some of them would be falling on her if she didn't do anything. Immediately, Nise shifted her focus. Slice. Nise started slicing up the trees that were going to fall on her with 3 of her vectors, while using the last vector, to push her around to avoid the already fallen trees. As Nise was sliding through the forest, Gami flew after her, waiting for his opportunity to strike. And that opportunity would be coming soon. I just need to get out of the range of his quirk. Nise thought to herself. No matter how powerful a quirk is, it has to have limits. I just need to keep Mauve Slam. Before Nise could finish the thought, she found herself slamming into an invisible wall. A small explanation. When Gami first sliced the ground, it didn't actually do nothing. What Gami killed there was this space's connection to their dimension. In other words, Gami had sealed everything within the small area they were in, into its own separate pocket dimension. Meaning, there was no escape. But it seemed like that wouldn't matter, as Gami took advantage of Nise's surprise, and rushed to cut her back. Gami came in and slashed at her back. Only for him to accidentally hit the base of one of Nise's vectors, which he couldn't cut. Nise felt something hit her vectors, and quickly realized what happened, and before Gami could get in a second strike, she used her vectors and grabbed Gami by his wings, and held him up. Before Nise could take advantage of this, however, Gami cut himself again, killing his wings, causing them to vanish, and Gami to fall to the ground. As soon as he hit the still shifting dirt, Gami pushed himself back, away from Nise. However, Nise wasn't going to let him get away that easy, and pushed herself off the invisible wall, towards Gami, reaching him in little to no time at all. Gami knew he would only have time to do one thing, before Nise grabbed him, so he had to think fast. And so just as Nise's vectors were grabbing his shoulders, Gami cut themselves and killed their own friction. When Nise tried to grab him, her vectors just slipped off them, unable to grab something with 0 friction. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr. Nise growled angrily, frustrated with the no friction thing by this point. Gami then used his scythe to push himself forward and slid towards Nise, But of course, this didn't work and resulted in Nai's backhanding them with one of their vectors, and sending them flying into the air. Now that he was once again a good distance away from Nai's, he then cut himself again, killing his flightlessness, cancelling out his earlier use of his quirk, and regrowing his wings. Gami looked down at Nai's, who was still sliding around, chopping up trees in her way. I need to find a way to get past those vectors. Wait, that might work. Then, Gami started flying around, swooping down to cut trees, and killing their gravity, making them float into the air. What on earth are they doing? Nai's asked herself as she watched Gami send more trees into the air. Nai's then saw Gami fly under the trees, and turn their back on her. She saw a chance to get an hit on them, and used her vectors to change her direction, and launch herself towards Gami, intent on smacking them towards the ground, and getting in a good few hits. However, this was all part of Gami's plan. As he heard Nai's launch herself towards him, he knew what he had to do. Normally, Gami's quirk could not affect itself. Meaning Gami couldn't just cut himself and kill his quirk's drawbacks, or effects. However, there were workarounds to this. And so as Nai's closed in on him, Gami cut himself and killed his existence. Just like that, Gami vanished, causing Nai's vectors to hit nothing. Suddenly, Nai's felt a chill going down her spine, and felt something closing in on her from above. She looked up, and found out, much to her horror, that since Gami currently didn't exist, neither did his quirk, or its effects, meaning, everything that was being affected by Gami's quirk would return to normal. That included the gravity of all the trees above her, which were now about to fall on top of her. Crash! The trees slammed into Nai's, and they crashed into the ground, pinning her to the ground. Almost immediately afterward, Gami, or rather Sheena, appeared back in the exact same spot, since the effects of their quirk vanished when they ceased to exist. That meant nothing keeping them from existing, so that move, in particular, could only last for a moment. Sheena screamed in terror, as they immediately started falling to the ground. She quickly cut her arm again, killing her flightlessness, causing her wings to come back, which allowed her to safely come back to the ground. Phew! Sheena breathed a sigh of relief. I'm so glad that worked. If could feel emotions when I'm Gami would have started getting scared. Man, that girl was tough. Sheena looked at the huge pile of logs that Nai's was currently buried under and started to worry. Wait. This wouldn't kill her. Would it? Oh, I really hope she's not dead. I just got a new start on my life not killing people. Fortunately, or unfortunately depending on how you looked at it, Nai's proved to be alive, when suddenly, the front of the pile of trees burst open, and Nai's limped out. Back when Nai's was about to get hit by the trees, she knew she couldn't dodge, nor could she cut up that many trees at once, when they were already so close to her. But she did still have one option. She wrapped her vectors around her body, covering herself in a psychic shield. This did still have some consequences, however. Her vectors had something called a psychic feedback. Whenever she used them, it would send a psychic shockwave through her body, which would start harming her body if she overused her quirk, or if her vectors were hit by something very strong. Like, say, a few dozen tons of wood. So while Nai's was still alive and conscious, she was definitely hurt. Blood was coming from her mouth, and out of tears on her body, and she felt like she got hit by a bus. Ugh. Nai's immediately fell to one knee and started breathing heavily. She's weak. This is my chance to end this, Sheena thought. She rushed forward, not wanting to give Nai's a single second to recover. Her scythe was raised to strike her and, off. Suddenly, Sanson popped out of the ground, and got in between Sheena and Nai's, creating a giant slime wall with her body, with her head on top. Huh. Sheena jumped back, shocked at Sanson's appearance. What are you doing? No more fighting. Sanson told her with a pout. Gonna make Daddy angry. I'm just trying to make sure she doesn't kill anyone or drag me back to the MLA, Sheena said, defending her actions, while she hid her scythe behind her back, and started secretly making small cuts on her leg. Did you see how she was fighting? There's no way someone with amnesia and no control over her quirk could fight like that. Well, you're right there. That is suspicious. Everyone looked to the right and saw Fu walking out of the woods. I saw some of the fight, and you are right. No, one with no control over their quirk could fight like that. Fu said, before turning to Nizuke to explain. Niz just paused, and then her eyes glazed over for a few seconds. And then, she blinked and started looking around. Huh? Where am I? Ow. Why does my body hurt so much? She then looked up at Sheena through Sanson and gasped in fear. It's the scary scythe girl. Please don't hurt me, I swear I won't do anything bad. Tears started rushing out of her eyes, and soon all of her words turned into incomprehensible babbling. You dummy, Sheena said, before she dashed at Niz, having had her enhanced strength and speed restored. That won't work. She went right through Sanson and came to Niz in no time. Slash. Niz cried out in pain, as Sheena created a small cut on her forehead. Immediately afterward, Sanson wrapped around Sheena, restraining her with all her might. There. I just killed her dishonesty. Now she can't lie anymore. Sheena said, not bothering to fight against Sanson. So tell us. Do you really have amnesia? Are you really not trying to kill anyone? Tell us. Niz just cowered in fear, unable to say a word as she trembled and shook. Move away from her, Fu ordered, and Sanson followed, moving a good distance back, and taking Sheena with her, before he went up to Niz, and knelt down beside her. As she looked at him with fear still in her eyes, but not as much as before now that Sheena had been restrained and taken away. Niz, listen. If you are innocent, then this is your best chance to prove it. So just take a moment. Breathe, and then answer us. Okay? Niz gave a very shaky nod, and after a couple of minutes, she managed to give an answer. I really don't remember anything. I really have amnesia. And I don't wanna kill anyone. Immediately Niz went back to crying, while Sheena just looked at her in pure shock. That's impossible, Sheena whispered, absolutely dumbfounded by what Niz just said. Did 9 minutes already pass since I cut her? Do you still have your super strength and speed? Fu asked her, getting a nod from the pale girl. Then 9 minutes haven't passed. And you're sure that you killed her dishonesty? Aye. Yes, Sheena admitted. Still extremely confused by what just transpired. Well, then there we go, Fu said, before turning back to Niz. But with that said, how did you do all that during your fight if you have amnesia? Fight? Niz looked up at him confused. What fight? You don't remember? You were just fighting against Sheena here. Fu told her. I don't remember that. When they ran at me, everything went black. And then I woke up here, Niz explained as best she could through the sobs. This only added to Sheena's shock, and at this point, she was just at a loss for words. Fu took a minute to ponder this, before just shaking his head. Well, I guess that's that. Let her go, Sanson. Sanson did as she was told, and released Sheena from her hold. You, go back to your room. I'll ask Izuku to look over your wounds in there. I don't think you and Niz should both be in the same room right now. Fu instructed. And you can also take the time to explain to him what you did. Since he happened to be sleeping during the whole thing. Sheena just nodded, still too dumbfounded to talk, as she just walked back home in silence. Sanson, please carry Niz home, and take her to the med bay, Fu ordered. I still have something I need to do here. Sanson gave him a big thumbs up, before grabbing Niz, who flinched at her touch, before easing into it, Sanson's cool body doing wonders for her injured one. After the two of them left, Fu remained behind, waiting for a few moments, before beginning the conversation. So, any idea what that was? I think I might. Yonda said. She stepped out from her hiding spot behind one of the fallen trees. And thank you for carrying me here. If you hadn't, I might have never figured out what was wrong with her. Enough with the fake politeness. Just tell me. Fu said, feeling slightly annoyed. This whole thing has been a giant mess, and I would appreciate just knowing a bit more about what the heck is going on. Fine. I forgot you're no fun. Yonda said, rolling her eyes. Anyway, do you recall that point where her eyes glazed over? Yes. Fu answered. What about it? Well, before that happened, her thoughts were completely different. Yonda revealed. Before her eyes glazed over, she thought stuff like, I just want a new life, and I think it's time for her to take control. Then after her eyes glazed over, her thoughts suddenly became, where am I? Why am I hurt? Etc. Okay? And that means what exactly? Fu asked. I think, and this is just a theory, Yonda said, that this girl has more than one personality. Dun dun dun. Also author's notes, and so the twist was revealed. The twist that was totally obvious if you watched the series Nice was based on. Also yeah, Sheena, Gami got their first real solo fight. And displayed some more of their abilities. If you have any questions about what they did in this chapter, put them in the reviews, and I will address them next chapter. Chapter 139, Hand in Hand. Izuku really wished he could just skip this part of his life right now. Just like a whole month of his life. Things were already difficult seeing as he was dealing with the arrival of his secretary and her daughter, another new child, and all the special accommodations that came with that, dealing with the new branch of his organization and everything that came with that. And now, he had to deal with the aftermath of one of his children attacking another one. Oh, and the discovery that apparently, Nice likely had DID. The first matter, of course, aside from patching up Sheena, was deciding her punishment. Now, on the one hand, this was a very serious offense. But on the other hand, the idea of giving a major punishment so soon after Sheena just got here, made him wince. And in all honesty, he can't blame a child for acting out of fear. Especially not when she just escaped a nightmare. He more blamed himself for not taking precautions against this. He should have seen something like this coming. So all in all, he ended up grounding Sheena for half a month, which she considered rather generous. Then of course there was the matter of dealing with the now even timider and confused Nice. Or at least, that's what Izuku wishes he could focus on. In actuality, the thing Izuku actually had to take care of next, was the massive amount of damage that was caused during their battle. To say that that was a difficult matter, would be an understatement. It wasn't easy to fix an area after it had all its friction removed, everything was everywhere except for where it should be. All the dirt would have to be dug out and put back, and grass patches would have to be removed and replaced. And of course, all the trees would have to be picked up, sold off, and replanted. And the amount of paperwork that was required made up a stack almost as big as his head. Gosh, I can't wait until Cole gets here. Izuku sighed, as he kept reading and signing papers. Which reminded him, that he still needed to hire more employees. Currently, he only had 2 security guards, a volunteer helper, and 1 secretary. Not counting the people from the science division which he left to the head of that department. His most pressing concerns were hiring more security guards. After all, if he had more guards during the attack, things would have gone better for him, at least 1 cook, and a doctor, nurse. And of course, all of this was made harder by the fact that he didn't know who was secretly an assassin sent by a powerful quirkist shadow organization. Izuku could feel a headache coming on, and so he stopped his current train of thought. Spiraling won't help you. I need to focus on what I'm doing right now, and brrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr Please don't be Nami. He took out his phone and looked at the caller ID, and somehow it was even worse than Nami. It was Tsuma. In case you forgot, folks, she is Eri's mother by birth, possibly one of the last people Izuku would want to talk to, especially now. But he also couldn't afford to not answer, given how unstable her whole situation was. If he made a wrong move, the woman may end up killing herself. And so, he picked up. "Hello, Tsuma." "Hello, Midoriya," Tsuma responded, sounding timid as usual whenever she spoke to him. "I'm sorry for interrupting, I know you're busy, but I wanted to see how you were doing after the attack." "Well, it's a bit strange for you to be calling about, considering how much time has passed since then," Izuku pointed out. "Yeah. I've been busy with work, and other stuff," Tsuma said awkwardly. "You mean drinking?" Izuku asked, recalling how the woman reeked of alcohol. "Yes." Tsuma admitted shamefully. "I'll be completely honest, I've spent most of my time not working in a drunk-addled haze, wondering if I should call you." Izuku facepalmed. "I'm guessing you were worried about Eri. Is she doing okay after the attack? Did any of her friends get hurt? Is she still smiling?" Tsuma dropped all pretenses, and started asking questions rapidly fire. "She's mostly fine," Izuku said, cutting her off before she could continue assaulting him with questions. "She was a bit rattled at first, but she's getting over it. You know, she's been through worse. This was almost nothing to her. She's a strong girl. Can you show me some more pictures of her?" Tsuma asked, and he could hear the trepidation in her voice clear as day. She was expecting him to say no. "I know you don't owe me anything, but it would really put my mind at ease." Izuku thought it over. He could easily send her over some pictures to ease her mind. But he had another idea. "All right, I'll send you some more pictures. Under one condition." "Name it," Tsuma said immediately, with no hesitation. "I want you to send me a picture of you with other people, having a good time, out in public," Izuku told her. "What?" Tsuma asked, sounding absolutely taken aback. "I want you to send me a picture of yourself hanging out with other people, be they co-workers or friends or whatever, and having fun outside someplace," Izuku explained. "Be it a bar or karaoke, or a movie or whatever. Just get out of your house, and start living your life. Please. For your sake, for my sake, and for Eri's sake. Because if she found out how you were living right now, she would burst into tears." He could practically hear her cringing, and he hoped that would be enough to motivate her. "Now if you excuse me, I have work to do. Send me the picture I want, and I'll send you the picture you want," Izuku told her. "I hope to hear from you soon." And with that, he hung up. Izuku sighed. And yet another problem he'd have to watch over. Knock knock. "Daddy? Can I come in?" Kyaku asked from the other side of his office door. "Of course, honey," Izuku said after taking a second to regain his composure. He didn't want to end up venting his frustrations on his young daughter. Kyaku came in and looked at him with hopeful eyes. "Daddy, can you teach me more about how you work?" At first, Izuku wanted to refuse. He had so much on his plate already, but then he took a look down at his work. This would be a good opportunity to teach her about how to fix up the forest, and I did agree to teach her. "All right, come here," Izuku said, motioning to his lap. Kyaku eagerly ran up to him, and Izuku picked her up and set her on his legs. "Now I don't have much time, so I need you to pay close attention," Izuku instructed her firmly but gently. "Now here's how you deal with these." The rest of the morning Izuku spent teaching Kyaku while doing paperwork. Due to having to explain the process very thoroughly to his 6-year-old daughter, things went quite a bit slower. It didn't help that as time went on, it became harder and harder for Kyaku to pay attention. As despite her determination to learn, she was still a child, and paperwork was still completely and utterly dull. By hour 5, Izuku could see the life leave his daughter's eyes as she stared blankly at the paperwork. "Well, I think that's it for our lesson," Izuku said, getting her attention. "Huh? Oh yeah." Kyaku felt a little bad about dropping out of the lesson right now. After all, she could still learn more things about how to help her family. But on the other hand, She was concerned that she might actually die of boredom if this continued. Slam. Suddenly the door burst open, and Sori came strutting in with a plate of food. "Yo boss, I got your food." "Ya missed lunch." Izuku sighed. "Sorry, please knock next time. You're setting a bad example for the kids." "Sorry. Here you go boss," Sori said, serving Izuku his food. "Man, that scaredy cat girl sure is good at cooking for her age. That fish was delish." "What about me? Where's my food?" Kyaku asked, feeling a bit peckish. "Oh hey Squirt, didn't see you there," Sori said, taking notice of the small girl. "Yeah, you got some downstairs for ya. The scaredy cat girl put some aside for ya. Well, in that case, please go ahead and eat. I'm sure Fuku's worried about you not eating," Izuku told his youngest daughter. "Thank you, Daddy," Kyaku said as Izuku helped her off his lap, and she ran out of the room to start eating. "Ugh." Izuku leaned back and let out an exasperated groan. "I really need to find a teacher for these guys as well. Yikes, being you always looks so exhausting, boss," Sori noted, taking a good look at Izuku. "How can you get so tired from just sitting down and signing papers?" "It's more mentally exhausting than anything," Izuku said, before looking at his watch. "Well, I guess this would be a good time to take a break. Please go back to the security room." "Got it, boss." "Oh, and by the way, Lady K told me to tell her if you started overworking yourself. And said that if you do, she's gonna come in here and make you take a break." Sori warned him casually. "Yeah, that sounds like her alright." Izuku chuckled. Lady K sure loves you a lot." "I'm jealous, sir," Sori half-joked, as she strolled out of the room. Izuku smiled. "As tiring as this job is, it has its perks," Izuku said after finishing his meal. It was about 30 minutes later, and Izuku had retired to his room and decided to watch some hero fights on the news. Ring ring. Izuku sighed, as he started to hate the sound of his phone ringing. Although thankfully it was Cole calling, hopefully, with good news. "Cole, I hope everything is alright on your end," Izuku greeted. "So far yes," Cole said, her voice sounding a bit tense. "We're at the airport now. Cassie is staring down anything that looks at us wrong, and I have to keep her from doing something that'll get her cancelled on social media. Again. Sometimes I swear it feels like I'm the older sister." "I understand the frustration," Izuku said, with a slight laugh. "And it's good to hear you're safe. Any sign the government tailing you, or doing anything suspect?" "None so far, hopefully." They realized getting into a fight with their own #1 hero isn't worth it, Cole said. "But we can never be too sure." "Should you be saying stuff like that in front of Alice?" Izuku asked, concerned for the younger girl. "Oh, Alice is with Cassie. They're using the bathroom while I make this call," Cole explained. "And don't worry, I have a panic button on me. If anyone tries anything while they're gone, Cassie will literally burst out of the bathroom and deal with it." "And you're 100% sure that the star and stripes you gave Alice to was the real one, and not a shapeshifter sent by the government?" Izuku asked. "Fork." Cole cursed, as she realized that was a possibility. "I gotta go. I'll text you before I get on the plane if everything goes well. Bye." And with that, she immediately hung up, leaving Izuku with a pit in his stomach. "Please be okay." Izuku sighed, as he forced himself to move on from that situation. At the moment he couldn't do anything for them, so he'd have to just focus on all the things he could do right now. "Well, I finished all the paperwork that needed to be done by today, so I guess I can take care of that Nai's situation," Izuku thought to himself. Nai's had been locked up in her new room, which now had a door similar to Fuku's and could only be opened if she allowed it, making her feel a bit safer than before. Still, the poor was, justifiably, terrified of being attacked again, and refused to let anyone but Fu and Sanson enter her room. Seeing as those two had protected her, Izuku hoped that she would still think of him as a friend as well, as approached her door. Bang bang bang. Izuku knocked on the hard metal door and winced a bit as he realized how loud and scary that might sound to someone like Nise in her current condition. Maybe I should add a doorbell. Hi, Nise. It's me, Izuku. Izuku said in the safest tone he could muster. I'm sorry about what happened yesterday. If you don't want to let me in that suddenly. The door opened, and Izuku was grabbed by Nise's vectors. Before Izuku could even realize what was going on, he was forced into Nise's room and felt Nise attached to his chest. Whoa. Izuku was barely able to stay standing, as Nise clung to him. Nise dug her head into his chest, and Izuku could hear sniffling, as well as feel tears soak into his shirt. Once Izuku managed to get his balance, he closed the door behind him and wrapped an arm around Nise. Hey, it's okay, Izuku whispered to her, as he used his other arm to rub circles into her back. I'm so sorry all that happened to you after I promised you'd be safe. It won't happen again. I swear. They all hate me. Nise sobbed, her voice muffled by Izuku's chest. Everyone but Fu and the acid girl. That's not true, Izuku assured her. Yes, some of the others don't like you as much. But, even they wouldn't dream of attacking you like that. Shina was just. She had a special reason for doing what she did. It was still wrong, but she was just very scared. No one here is bad, but they can do dumb things sometimes. But I've talked to everyone, and I've made sure no one will attack you like that ever again. They spent the next few minutes in a calming embrace, as Izuku did everything he could to try and help ease the poor girl. Eventually, her crying subsided, but she still clung to Izuku like her life depended on it. What do I do? Nise asked through her sniffling. You don't have to do anything, Izuku assured her. All you have to do is show them that you don't mean any harm, and they'll trust you. It just takes time. Until then, you don't have to do anything that makes you feel scared or uncomfortable. Nise didn't say a word back, only taking in Izuku's words and using them for comfort. I know things seem bad, but I promise you that they will get better, Izuku swore to her. You just have to be patient. Can you stay with me for a while? Nise asked sheepishly. Izuku sighed internally. He was going to have extra work to do tomorrow. Of course. I'll stay as long as you want. Izuku slightly regretted saying that. Because as it turns out, for as long as she wanted, was basically the whole day. It's not that Izuku didn't want to spend time with her, he actually quite enjoyed himself. Introducing and watching shows with her, playing some games, he even started guiding her on how to control her emotions. He just dreaded how much work he'd have to make up for tomorrow. But on the bright side, he did have time to get a head start on it, as Nise had fallen asleep soon after dinner. Izuku tucked Nise into bed, putting the blanket over her, and making sure she was comfortable. Alright, now I can try and catch up on some of my work. Izuku thought. Thing. Or maybe not. Izuku face-palmed, and hoped that this wasn't yet another thing to be put on his plate. Thankfully, it was a text from Cole, with good news. It read, "Thank you so much for bringing the shape-shifting thing. They tried that twice. Thankfully Cass took care of them. I'm on the plane now. Should be here by tomorrow. I'll be ready to work." Izuku smiled. Well, looks like tomorrow won't be so work-heavy after all. Alright, so next chapter we'll finally get Alice and Cole. Chapter 140, Star Landing. Thank you for accompanying me, All Might. It's always nice to talk to you again. Izuku and All Might were currently in the back of a car, one with a very large roof to accommodate his size, waiting outside the airport. No issue, young Midoriya, I'm quite eager to see Cassie again after all this time. All Might said in response. Besides, I'm never too busy to help safeguard a child. Speaking of children, have you given any thought to my offer? Izuku asked him, his tone becoming serious as he shifted the conversation. Quite a bit actually. All Might sighed. However, I can't say I've come to a proper conclusion. I can understand your hesitation, but I assure you there's no risk of Eri doing anything bad to you, Izuku assured him. She used her quirk a lot during the villain attack, and she had complete control thanks to Sheena. It's not so much a matter of her control issue, rather I'm concerned about how little we know about Eri's quirk itself. All Might explained. I have no doubts it could revert me back to a healthier state, but what if it affects One for All? Or rather the embers left behind by One for All? Can it really recreate a quirk that powerful? Or at least restore my embers back to full power, or keep them at their current power? What if it runs into a similar issue that other reality-bending quirks run into, in that it has a limit to its power? What if it can't recreate One for All's power and just takes away my remaining power, or makes it weaker? That caused Izuku to pause for a moment, before looking down, and going into a mutter storm, as he contemplated All Might's suggestion. Young Midoriya. All Might poked Izuku, causing him to flinch out of his mutter storm. Oh, sorry. Izuku apologized. But you're right, I can't say that's not a risk. If we're not careful, we could reduce your limited time as the symbol of peace to none. But what if we did it after your time is over? Like after the embers of One for All die out? If we did it, then the worst thing that would happen is you'd be healthy again, just without One for All. All Might took a second to ponder that. That would work. Beep. 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 Izuku's alarm went off, signifying the end of the conversation. It's time, let's go. Izuku and All Might had exited the car, and entered the airport, to meet up with the American trio. Of course, that wasn't actually all that difficult, given that Star and Stripes was a huge Amazon woman, surrounded by fans. The actually difficult part, at least for All Might, was getting to her, through the massive amount of fans surrounding him. Star. All Might called out happily when he spotted the fellow #1 hero. All Might. Star cried out with equal amounts of enthusiasm. After spending a couple minutes wading through the fans, All Might and Star finally got face to face. Clap. All Might and Star slammed their hands together and clenched, showing off their ridiculously tight muscles, and causing many women and men to swoon. Good to see you again, old friend. All Might chuckled. Same to you, master. Although I feel sorry about having to rely on you to save my sister a second time. Star replied. Nonsense. A hero's job is never done. And helping out someone in need is the definition of a hero's job. All Might laughed. Well put. Star agreed. While Star and All Might were talking surrounded by people talking and taking videos, Izuku met with Cole and Alice, who were standing off to the side. Alice was a small girl, slightly shorter than average for her age. She had long straight blonde hair that went down to her back, and bright blue, curious eyes, as well as freckles, dotted on her face, similarly to Izuku's. She wore a white and blue dress, with red shoes and a red headband on her hair. She was currently hiding behind her mother's leg, looking at Izuku curiously. Again, I have to thank you for this. I really can't explain how much I appreciate what you're doing. Cole said, giving Izuku a respectful bow. It's my pleasure. After everything you and your sister have done, this is the least I can do. Izuku smiled and extended a hand out, which she promptly shook. Honestly, you're saving me too. If I didn't start getting some more help, I'm concerned the paperwork might have killed me before the assassins did. Cassie once told me something similar. Cole chuckled, before looking down at her daughter. Alice dear, this is Director Midoriya. He's going to be taking care of us from now on. Make sure to show him proper gratitude. Alice came out from behind her mother's leg, and gave him a shy bow, before speaking in broken Japanese. Hello. Thank you. Very much. Izuku kneeled down and smiled at her, before speaking back in English. You're very welcome. Alice's eyes widened. You speak English? Izuku nodded. Yes. So don't be afraid to speak to me in English if you want. He could see a bit of relief in the young girl's eyes, most likely happy that there was someone else who she could speak comfortably to. Well then, shall we get going? From the sound of it, we have a lot of work to do, Cole said, already getting her work face on. Are you sure you want to get to work right away? I'd be more than happy to give you a few days to rest. You just got here after going through a horribly nerve-wracking experience, Izuku offered. Of course, he'd absolutely love the immediate help, but he wasn't gonna sacrifice his morals for the sake of convenience. Honestly, I find paperwork rather relaxing, Cole admitted, getting the expected surprised and confused look from Izuku. Every time, I get that face every time I say that. Is it really that surprising that I enjoy my job? Well, I guess that's good for me then. I don't have to worry about you hating your tasks, Izuku said, awkwardly laughing. But, if that's the case, then we should definitely get going. I really don't want the work to stack up any more than it already has, and we have to introduce Alice to the house. Great, but how are we going to get those two out of there? Cole said, glancing over at All Might and Star. I saw this coming. I have ride prepared separately for them, Izuku explained. I have a feeling they're going to be here for quite some time, so they'll meet up with us later. Forward thinking, I like that. I have a feeling we are going to work just fine together. Cole smiled, feeling confident about the future. It's actually bigger in person, Cole said, as she, Alice, and Izuku looked up at the Midoriya Foundation home. Wow, Alice said, looking up with eyes as wide as dinner plates. This is where you'll be living from now on, Izuku told them, causing Alice's eyes to somehow get even wider. I told you we'd be going to Wonderland, Alice, Cole said to her daughter playfully. And here we are. Wonderland? That's a high standard. I'll have to do my best to meet it, Izuku laughed nervously. Well, let's go inside. Once they entered the house, Alice started looking around madly, as if trying to scan the entire house. However, that only lasted for a few seconds, as when they entered the house, they were soon met with the arrival of Nara. This is Nara, one of the oldest kids in the house, and she also speaks a bit of English. Izuku normally would have introduced the kids to the house, but seeing as Nara spoke some English and Fu was busy, she was the better choice in his opinion. She'll be guiding Alice around the house if that's okay with you. Hello. I'll do my best to guide you, Nara said in very sloppy English. Alice nervously walked up to her, and gave a bow, before speaking in her own broken Japanese. Hi, I'm Alice. Hello Alice, please follow me, Nara said in English, before extending her hand out to her. Alice paused for a moment, before taking her hand and allowing Nara to take her deeper into the facility. Cole meanwhile, watched on with a fond smile on her face. I'll have to thank you again, it seems, for being so mindful. I was worried that Alice might not be able to connect to anyone here for a while. Just like back in America, Izuku frowned. It's because they didn't know what her quirk was for so long. That was the reason the other kids didn't get along with her, wasn't it? Cole sighed. Quirkism's not as bad in America as it is in Japan, but it still definitely exists. Especially among children. Well, she won't have to worry about that here. No one is alone in this house. Izuku reassured her with a slight smile. Now, let's go take a look at the paperwork. I doubt it'll be anywhere near as bad as what I had to deal with back in America, Cole said confidently. Oh, never mind, it's actually pretty close, Cole said, as she entered Izuku's office, and looked at the massive amount of papers stacked everywhere. This is almost an average day back at the hero firm. Really? This much? Izuku asked in shock. You should have seen what it was like in the early days. Chloe chuckled. Before Cassie got better at avoiding collateral damage. That was too much even for me. Well, in that case, you should find this job much easier. Things are a bit backed up due to some recent incidents. So this is actually more than usual, Izuku explained. Well, then I got here at just the right time, Cole said, before cracking her knuckles. Let's get to work, shall we, sir? And this is your room, Nara explained in English to Alice, showing off her new room from the doorway. Alice took a look around. The room was smaller than the one she had in America, but that didn't bother her too much. And of course, it was plain, but that would be fixed once her aunt got there with their luggage. Feel free to decorate it, as you please, Nara explained. Alice opened her mouth to say something when suddenly, she heard something coming up from behind them. She looked back at the beginning of the hallway, and found a Beowulf, walking through the hall. Alice jumped back into her room, in fear of the nightmarish-looking wolf. Oh! Don't fear. It's not evil, Nara explained quickly, before looking over at the Beowulf, and gesturing for it to come over. Watch. The Beowulf walked up to Nara and stood in front of her. Sit, Nara ordered, and immediately, the Beowulf sat down. See? Not evil. Alice looked at the creature for a second before she started slowly approaching it. When she finally got about a foot away from it, she slowly started moving her arm towards its head, and pet it. See? It's okay, Nara assured her. They are our friends. What? Is it? Alice asked, the fear in her eyes replaced with wonder and curiosity. This is Grim, Nara said, trying to remember the right words. They are made by Yami's quirk. They are servants and protectors. They do what we ask. Really? Alice asked, getting so excited she went back to speaking English. They won't follow you, right now. Yami has to give you permission, and Yami is not here, Nara explained, causing Alice's expression to fall. But, I can give them orders, for you. Once more, Alice's eyes lit up. Can I ride it then? Nara smiled at her adorable enthusiasm. Sure. It'll keep our feet from getting tired anyway. Alice was smiling so much her mouth almost hurt, as she and Nara rode atop the Beowulf down the stairs. So what is this made of? Alice asked excitedly, looking down at the inky black fur of the Beowulf. Negative emotions, Nara explained in English. It was really hard to speak in English this much, but she was actually glad. This was a real test of skills. Yami takes negative emotions, and makes them into monsters. Cool. Alice gushed as she started poking and prodding the Beowulf. Nara giggled. This girl's adorable. As they were talking, the Beowulf brought them into the cafeteria. This is where we eat, Nara explained. Are you hungry? Alice nodded. Can I have Japanese food? Okay. Nara nodded. Beowulf, kitchen. The Beowulf started walking toward the kitchen. When they arrived, they opened the door to the kitchen, and found Fuko inside, listening to music with her ear pods, and getting ready to cook some fish she caught earlier. Fuko hummed, as she pulled out some pots and pans, before turning around, and seeing the two girls and Beowulf. Wait, it's just Nara. Oh, don't scare me like that, I almost let out my gas. Gas? Alice wondered if she understood that correctly, or if she got her Japans wrong again. Sorry Fuku, I just wanted to make some food for our new friend here, Nara said, before moving slightly to reveal Alice behind her. Oh, Fuku said, slightly more nervous in the presence of a new person. Hi, Alice said back. This is Fuku, she's so be gentle please, Nara told Alice in English. But she's really good at cooking. Nara then turned back to Fuku. Speaking of which, Fuku, could you make us some of whatever you were making? Okay. I was gonna make some sushi. Are you okay with that? Fuku asked nervously. Yes, Alice answered, understanding the bulk of what she said. I'll have some too thanks, Nara said. Maybe make some for Izuku too, I bet he must be miserable with all that paperwork. Ugh. I can't believe we're halfway done. Izuku collapsed back into his chair. The progress the two had made was astounding, or rather the progress Cole had made, was astounding. Izuku looked up at Cole at her own desk and noticed that she was completely focused, in a world of her own. Her hands moved faster than Izuku thought possible for a normal human, as she typed stuff on her computer with one hand, and signed papers with the other. It seemed the Bate sisters were masters in their respective professions. She really did save me. This is great. Izuku smiled and leaned back. Now I just have to deal with getting Jin here, getting Yami back, creating more Grim, getting the science division settled, and of course, getting all the children acclimated, and hiring more people, and then things will go back to normal. Well, at least I don't have to worry about the paperwork so much. Alright, so this was the introduction to Cole and Alice properly. Next chapter we'll spend some time with them, as well as Sheena and Nice before we move on to more stuff. Things have been moving pretty fast, so I want to take a little break from introducing new stuff. Might also take another chapter to show him AI and Yami. Chapter 141, Talentless Sheena. So what now? You are an idiot. Sheena and Yonda were sitting in Sheena's room. Sheena was currently sitting on her bed, while Yonda stared her down with her arms crossed. I thought she was a threat. Sheena defended herself, giving Yonda a pleading look. Yes, I get why. You did it. But the way you went about it was utterly stupid. Yonda scolded her. If the girl was just waiting for any chance to hurt father, she would have done it, long before we got the chance to stop her. Meaning she either didn't mean any harm, at least not yet, or she was waiting for a good chance to kill father in an isolated place. Meaning the best course of action was just to keep an eye on her, and make sure she's never alone with father, or anyone to be safe. Had things gone poorly, she could have killed you, claimed it was an accident, and we'd be back where we started, just with you dead. I wouldn't have lost. Sheena thought, with a pout. I'm strong. Yeah, and so is she. I don't know much about combat, but I do know that it's not a simple matter. Get overconfident, or make a mistake, and that could be your death. Yonda pointed out. She wasn't trying to kill me. I know what it looks like when someone tries to kill you. Sheena pointed out, recalling the way Nice had fought her. But you didn't know that when you went in. Did you? Yonda asked her. No. Sheena pouted guiltily. Ugh. That being said, I can't say that this wasn't useful. We did get some rather useful information from this fight. Yonda conceded. Doesn't make what you did any less stupid, but at the very least we can call you a useful idiot instead of a regular idiot. Why are you so mean? Sheena asked, tears in the corner of her eyes. Because I have to hear every complaint, whine, cry and depraved and depressing thought that goes through everyone's heads, so excuse me if I'm in a bad mood. Yonda explained, completely unsympathetic towards the younger girl's plight. But also because you've made the job of getting everyone else to trust you much harder. Now Sheena was actually crying. This scolding was somehow worse than the one Izuku had given her. This was a mistake. I wish I never attacked that girl. Good. Yonda sighed. But, I suppose I've scolded you enough. We have work to do. I've already told the others that the fight was a misunderstanding, but let's just say it didn't do you any favors. So now we really need to find a way for you to stand out and get people to like you. Yonda then pulled out a pack of tissues and threw it at Sheena. Now dry those tears, we have work to do. Were you planning on making me cry? Sheena asked as she looked down at the tissue. Yup. Now move. Yonda ordered. We have a busy day ahead of us. Yonda took Sheena to the kitchen, where she had laid out 2 pieces of bread, and a slice of cheese. Now, cooking is a very good way to get people to like you. Fuku is a great example of that. Pretty much, everyone likes her by now, despite her hiding from half the people here. Yonda explained. So first, we're going to start with something simple. We have an American guest, let's see if we can surprise her with a grilled cheese sandwich. I don't know, I've never cooked anything before. Sheena pointed out, nervously twiddling her thumbs. It's not that hard. I'm sure you can manage something so simple. Yonda scoffed. A few minutes later, Sheena and Yonda were looking down at the counter, at the result of Sheena's work. A plate with what looked like a lump of charcoal. How? Was all Yonda asked. How did you manage to mess it up this badly? And why is the cheese still here? Oh, right, the cheese. Sheena looked down at the cheese she forgot to put between the bread. I knew was forgetting something, Yonda facepalmed. Alright. I have many things I want to say to you right now, but I know if I make you cry again it's going to waste more time. So let's try something, even simpler. The psychic girl went over to the pantry and pulled out a cup of cup ramen. This should be impossible to mess up. All you have to do is follow the directions of the cup. A few minutes later, Sheena and Yonda were staring at the counter, which had a flaming cup of ramen on it. Sheena cringed and waited for the mental tongue lashing she was sure to receive. But it never came. Yonda was simply too stunned to think. Instead, she walked over to the wall and slammed her head into it a couple of times. Sorry, I just needed to hurt myself to take my mind off. Whatever this was. Yonda explained as she turned to Sheena, showing the bruise on her head. I'm pretty that's not good. Sheena replied. Neither is your cooking. Yonda shouted, giving Sheena a headache as she screamed the words into her head. While Sheena cowered in fear, Yonda took a second to calm herself down. Okay. Yonda said after taking a minute. Clearly, you are not good at cooking. Let's try something else, shall we? Before I lose what's left of my sanity. Sheena and Yonda were now in the training room, or rather looking into the training room from the doorway. The training room currently had puddles of blood and piles of organs lying around, which Sheena was looking at with disgust. Okay, another thing you can do to make people like you is help clean. Yonda explained, pointing to the cart of cleaning products they'd brought. People hate cleaning, so if you do it for them, they'll like you more. Okay. That makes sense. How do I clean this? Sheena asked. Just use these chemicals, mop up the floor, and put all of the organs into this black bag. Yonda explained, pointing at the various supplies she'd need to clean this mess. Here I'll vrrrrr. Yonda stopped the thought when she suddenly felt her phone vibrate. She pulled out her phone, and saw a text message from her man inside Ua Mineta. I have what you asked me for. The text read. Yonda grinned sinisterly. Give me 1 second, dear. I need to take this. Yonda walked back towards the training room, with a huge grin on her face. If nothing else, at least one thing went her way today. However, that grin then swiftly fell, the moment she saw the training room. Instead of there being puddles of blood, blood was now splattered all over the place. In fact, there somehow appeared to be more of it. In the center of the room was Sheena, desperately trying to mop things up, while being covered in blood and organs. Yonda just stared at her for a while, before thinking to herself. Why does it look like there's more blood here than before? If I couldn't read minds, I'd swear she was doing this on purpose. Stop! Yonda ordered, causing Sheena to freeze up. Just stop. Before you make things even worse. I'm sorry. Sheena apologized tearfully. Just get over here so we can clean you up and move on to the next thing. Yonda mentally sighed. It's almost lunch, surely you can wash dishes. Crack. Yonda couldn't look anymore. But she didn't really need to either. She could tell by Sheena's thoughts, that she broke yet another plate. How many plates was that? The 10th. Sheena shamefully admitted. Turn off the water, and get down from there. Yonda ordered. Let's move on. Yonda had taken them to the library next, where she sat and Sheena down at one of the tables, and set out various papers on the desk. Now some of the people here are less smart than others. So let's test your intelligence to see if you're smart enough to help them out. Yonda explained. I've set up these tests to show how well you do in multiple subjects. Let's hope you can ace at least one of these. Slam. Yonda slammed her head into the table, into the papers she just finished grading. And on those papers were some rather low scores. The highest being 31% and the lowest being 8%. Yonda screamed in frustration. I'm sorry. Yonda apologized tearfully. Next thing. Now. Yonda shouted. Oh you. Sheena and Yonda were now in Shiraku's room, as Sheena was now attempting to knit a sock, under the supervision of Shiraku herself. It was going about as expected, as Sheena had just pricked herself with the needle for the 22nd time. Shiraku winced and grabbed Sheena's hands to stop her. I don't think you're cut out for knitting. Yonda face-palmed, slapping her now bruised forehead. Izuku didn't know what he was looking at. He was just doing some painting in the art room when Sheena and Yonda came in, and Yonda had Sheena start painting, for lack of a better word. It was more like Sheena was just splattering paint all over a canvas widely, and what came out reflected that. Apparently, it was supposed to be a cat, but it was completely unrecognizable. Yonda then smashed her head against a canvas and dragged Sheena out of the room. Weird. Yonda and Sheena had returned to Sheena's room, where Yonda was lying motionless on the ground, while Sheena sat on the bed, looking ashamed. Sheena. How is it you seem to have, and forgive me for being blunt, absolutely no talent whatsoever? Yonda asked, not removing her face from the floor. Well, I'm not used to doing things as myself. Most of the time whenever people wanted me to do anything, they wanted me to do it as Gami. Sheena explained. And when I'm Gami, it's just so different. I'm not used to being me. I hate that. That makes sense. Damn those quirkist bastards. Yonda thought to herself, before her eyes widened, as a realization suddenly came to her. I'm an idiot. I can't believe I didn't think of this sooner. Yonda picked herself up and jumped to her feet, before looking over at Sheena. Sheena. Can't you just kill your talentlessness or something? Or turn into Gami? Then you can do pretty much anything. Sheena frowned. I don't want that. What do you mean you don't want that? Yonda screamed so loud it caused Sheena to jump back against the wall of her bed. I'm sorry. Sheena quickly apologized. But I don't want to use my quirk for everything. Sometimes it feels like the only thing good about me is my quirk, even though I don't really like my quirk. I want to use my own talents or just get better at things I'm not good at. Also, I don't like cutting myself. Sheena looked down at the scars that littered her pale arms and legs. Her black dress covered up the scars over the rest of her body, but she could practically feel them. Yonda on the other hand was fuming. On the one hand, all of her plans had failed, and Sheena was refusing to go through with a simple solution, that'd help take care of this in a snap. But at the same time, she did understand where she was coming from. A lot of people just saw her as the girl who reads minds, and while she didn't really resent that, she did appreciate it when people looked at her as more than a quirk with a person attached. Fine. I will think of some other ways you can make yourself useful. Yonda said, before pulling out her thought silencers. But first I'm going to take a nap. I hit my head too many times. Yonda placed her silencers into her ears, and turned them on, before laying on the floor and falling asleep. Sheena breathed a sigh of relief. Yonda was not as bad as she first thought. She was a bit mean and forceful, but she was a rather hard worker, and she seemed to have good intentions. Even if the way she went about them left something to be desired. Then again, if Sheena complained about that, she'd be a hypocrite. Sheena laid back on her bed and wondered what she should do now. She was still grounded, and she wasn't friends with anyone here yet, so she was kind of at a loss as to what to do next. Well, one idea came to mind. Something she'd done when she'd been grounded bored before. Ugh. Fuka groaned as she walked through the halls back to her room, utterly exhausted. First, someone had made a mess in the kitchen. Somehow they managed to set a ramen cup on fire, which was a pain to clean up. Then after she made more food, someone broke like a dozen dishes, which was even more of a pain to clean. She couldn't wait to get back into her room and relax to some anime intros. Darker than night. Deep in the woods, you'll find standing alone. A circus that no one knows. Master of all, nearly 10 meters tall. Watching the show. eyes that will slowly grow. All who perform, smile with faces torn. Fuku stopped, as suddenly, she heard some wonderful singing coming from somewhere close. That voice, it's beautiful. But who is that? Is it one of the new girls? Despite her normally cautious nature, Fuku found herself walking towards the sound of that voice, wanting to know who was singing so wonderfully. Happy with glee. Strange as they look to me. Shall the fun start? Follow me to the Darkwood Circus, please. Join the festivity. It's right here. Fuku stopped in front of one of the doors, which she realized was Shina's, and looked at it with fearful wide eyes. No. That voice can't be her. Can it? Come and see the two-headed freak of nature. Gaze at a siren, her flesh, deformed. Fear the blue beast and his love for cold decaying meals that once were warm. Did we ask to breathe? Did we ask to only be abused? Living in bodies like these. Suddenly the singing got louder, and even more beautiful than before, so much so that Fuku's fear was overtaken by awe. And all she could pay attention to was this song. When you look at me, what is it that you see? Now a face, rotting and torn at the seams. Through the pain, I scream. How it hurts so badly. But we can't help it or do anything. As the girl would weep telling me this sadly. We perform always, the circus repeats. How I love the show. How I love it also. Can you see how fun a circus can be? As our flesh decays. And our eyes melt away. With a face rotting. It's fun every day. How I long to die. Why am I still alive? Anyone, help me escape from this life. You can never leave. Yes, I have a feeling, long ago, someone had told this to me. The song died down into humming, and Fuku was released from the spell of the music and was able to think again. That was beautiful. Her voice is amazing. Fuku was almost in tears from not only how great the singing was, but also the lyrics. Some of which stirred inside her. Part of her wanted to give applause. But that would mean giving away the fact that she was listening in, and the last thing she wanted to do was go face to face with someone as scary as Shina. You heard my singing? Asked the imaginary Shina in Fuku's head as she held up her scythe with a scary look in her eyes. Now you have to die. Nope. No, I'm good. Time to get going, Fuku. Fuku thought to herself, as she quickly and silently made her way toward her room. But I hope she really is trustworthy. It'd be a shame for a voice that pretty to belong to someone evil. Author's note, alright. A few pretty to belong to someone evil. Author's note, alright. A few things. Firstly, that song was Darkwood Circus. Specifically, I got the lyrics from Jubaphonic's video. So please check that out, it's a wonderful song. And second, so yeah, Shina's talent is singing. Too bad Yonda can't hear, so it might take her a while to find this out. And yes, she can hear her singing in her head, however how people sound and people think they sound, and the voices they think with, are different. So even if you can sing well in your head, Yonda wouldn't assume you can sing well with your voice. And third, I did say that this chapter was supposed to be about Alice and Nice too, but I decided to just give each of them a chapter to themselves. Anyway, please review, and have a nice day.